Orc's Vow by Celeste King.
An orc making a vow? That's not something you hear every day.
Trust me, this isn't your typical smash and destroy orc story.
So we're talking about an orc with depth?
And honor. And of course, passion. Maybe a little too much passion for YouTube to withstand.
That's right. But if you think you can handle it, head over to worldsofprothika.com and grab the unabridged audiobook.
With code YouTube30, get any digital product for 30% off at checkout, or an additional 30% off of already discounted bundles.
Remember to subscribe to the channel for more free, full audiobooks delivered right to your phone.
This is Celeste King's Orc's Vow.
Chapter 1. Goruk! Horthik! I yell across the camp. Horthik is half asleep beside the fire in the early morning, cuddled up like some suckling baby. I shut the flaps of Terruik's empty tent. We were supposed to be going out training, but of course, Terruik isn't here. He was probably out all damn night. "What you want?" Horthik yells back at me. "Where's that bastard Terruik?" "How the hell should I know?" "Now piss off, I'm trying to sleep," he pleads, laying his big stupid head back on the ground. "Useless idiot." I laugh as I step over him. "Hung over as usual, no doubt. Terruik, where are you, you bastard?" I stop, only to be greeted by the sound of snoring orcs. Looks like I'll be training alone today. I head out of the camp. I like it here, even if my fellow orcs are a bunch of drunken, whoring screw-ups. It's good to have such a large force gathered against the elves, and it's a pleasure to be on the front lines of the war. I take a deep breath and bound out of the camp towards the woods. I'm halfway to my training ground when I hear the sound of something approaching. Something on the main road. The rattle of their wagon is carried to me on the breeze. I know it isn't one of ours. I pull myself onto the ridge to be greeted by the sight of the elf caravan below me. I can't believe my luck. I have no idea what the dark elves are doing so close to us, but their foolishness is my gain. There are only about a dozen or some of the slimy bastards. I need to think fast and seize this opportunity. I quickly calculate their speed. This road runs at least another 5 miles before it reaches the open road. I calculate that if I move at twice their speed, I would have an hour advantage over them 3 miles ahead. I take off. My powerful body pushes me through the forest. I keep the road to my left and let the wind cool my body. I count and keep track as the first mile passes, the second, and the third. I stop and look around and notice the large pine trees. The plan in my head completes itself. I quickly catch my breath. I let the oxygen flow through my veins and summon the strength to pull down the tree with both hands. It falls to the forest floor, cushioned by the soft blanket of fallen leaves. I pull it across the short distance to the road, its colossal bulk blocking it completely. Bar using magic. There is no way those weak little bastards can shift it. I find a spot close to the road, melt into my surroundings, and wait. I think about how, when I slit the throat of each elf, when I have broken each bone in their skinny-assed bodies, I will have revenged my fellow orcs, and I cannot wait. And slowly they approach, right on time. I watch the bastards as their point man spots the tree across the road and signals back to the main group. They halt, and I ready myself to pounce. The clock ticks as I watch one of the elves exit the wagon. How many are in the wagon? Should I wait or attack? I calculate my options in my head. The odds are in my favor. I rise from cover and stalk down the ridge. Ha! They are too busy talking to notice my coming. Before the 2 elves can react, I take them both down with one blow, through one and then the other. Their heads bounce onto the ground and roll under the wagon. I smirk and turn, watching as the elf from the wagon draws back. Magic. He's getting ready to use magic. I must take as many down as possible before the others join him. I leap on the body of one of the headless elves and push myself through the air. "Bastards!" I yell, my voice like a shockwave through the air. I swing my axe as I aim at one of the elves on horseback, leaping to bring it down on the top of his skull. It travels through his body, slicing him in two. Each side of his body flops away from the other to the ground. Then I feel a sting in the back of my neck and know I've been hit by magic. Expecting to fall with the force, I find that it is weak. I need to act fast as one dark elf rushes toward me. I clock another one, stepping backward, more magic on the way. I pray to the war god it's as weak as the last shot. The dark elf charges at me, his face filled with rage as he draws his sword. "Death to the beast!" he cries as I raise the blunt staff of my axe before me. His eyes are red. He has let himself get too angry. Anger on a battlefield always causes mistakes. He is so fixed on my face that the stupid idiot doesn't see me as I drive the staff of my axe right into his skinny ballsack. "Arg!" he yells, and he can't help himself double over. "Another elf head for me!" I cry, swinging my axe across his neck. I stop short of a clean cut as his head drops and bounces around his chest. It has the desired effect on the other elf, who looks on in horror. As I charge him, I feel another bolt strike my back, but this one is stronger and knocks me forward. I see the elf in front of me take advantage of this, and his magic strikes me in the stomach, winding me badly. I feel the urge to fall to my knees, my whole body screaming for the ground below me, but I take no heed. I headbutt the dark elf in the face. His nose explodes, shooting blood into the air and onto my face. "Time to get off this earth!" I hiss as I slice my axe across his stomach and watch as his guts drop out. Two more rush me. I take them down, but where is that useless twit and his magic? I need to take him down fast. I look around and see one slipping under the wagon. I run over and grab his ankle, and I swing him around. After one full swing, I let him go, and he shoots through the air straight into the face of another elf. They fall. I plunge my axe into the back of one until it finds the stomach of the other beneath. I turn. It's quiet, but I know that asshat is about, and whoever is in the wagon still hasn't come out. I need to play this cool, and I need to lure them out. "Oh!" I yell out and drop to my knees, making sure the thud of my fall is loud enough to hear. I watch the bottom of the wagon as his footsteps appear. "Crap!" I moan, as if in pain. Then he appears. "I have you now, you filthy beast!" the ugly coot hisses at me. "Wait!" I hear another voice shout from the wagon, another one of the degenerates. The dark elf before me freezes, and I see a new pair of feet drop down from the wagon. "I'll take it from here," he states as he slips out from behind the wagon, and I watch as he plunges a dagger into the neck of his fellow dark elf, who drops like a sack of crap to the ground. I stare into his dirty elf face as he smiles down at me. He drops his dagger and raises his hands. "I'm Caspian, and I surrender," he says. I rise to my feet. "I'd shake your hand, but you'd probably rip it off and beat me to a pulp," he smirks. I think about doing just that.
Chapter 2. Valor. Ha! I step back, avoiding Jarek's swing. My feet move quickly, dancing around him. I'm much too light on my feet for this big hulk. Blast it! He pulls his mass around, trying to catch me, but before he can, I'm behind him. Gracefully, I swing my lance, stopping just short of his back. I give him a gentle tap. "And you're a dead orc, Jarek!" I call out, laughing. "Not again!" he howls, turning to me. "One of these days, Valor, one of these days." "In your dreams, you big lump." I pat Jarek on the back. He's a good orc and has been kind to me. Now go drown your sorrows. I watch as he huffs off, feeling sorry for himself. I throw water over my face, put our lances back on the rack, and look around the small training arena where I spend most of my days. We built it from nothing. Each panel of the round wooden surrounding fence was cut by hand. Wagons from the coast brought the sand that our sweat drips on. The orcs even built me a changing room. Jarek carved a sign that read, "Valor only." Orcs can surprise you occasionally. Everywhere I look are orcs. I should have gotten used to it by now, but I don't think I ever will. Being the only woman among a band of orcs takes a lot of patience and skill. But I have learned how their minds work, and how my own does into the bargain. "Valor!" A deep voice calls out to me. It can only be Hazen. He's old Malik's second and probably the busiest orc on camp. I wonder what the hell he wants with me. Hazen, I trust all is well with you. My words are loaded with the respect due to an orc of his status. His face is surprisingly youthful for his age, but his eyes tell the story of an orc that has seen too many battles. All in order, Valor. He looks me up and down. I see you have again dampened Jarek's spirits in the arena. The orcs have trained me well, I tell him. Indeed, something for you to always remember. You owe your life to the orcs, Valor. Never forget that, he states. The orc mind works in such an odd way, but I know how to manage it. I do and will forever be grateful for the strength and skill you have given me as a human, I say, knowing that will hit his spot. A good human knows their place, he replies, nodding his large head crowned with a mane of long hair. I nod back. Now, how can I serve you? A sensitive matter that requires an area of your expertise, Valor, he says in an orc whisper, which is as far from a human whisper as you can get. I'm intrigued. I will do whatever I can for the claws, you know that. We have, well, I say we, but it was actually Goruk. Ah, Goruk, Mr. Brains and Brawn. Handsome enough but an arrogant ass. I've kept my distance. He has captured, single-handedly, what seems to be a very high-status dark elf, he tells me with a childish glee. Of course, Goruk has captured him single-handed. It is such a Goruk thing to do. Good for Goruk, I say enthusiastically, but I am more interested in this prisoner. There's something not quite right about the whole thing, and given your experience of the slimy creatures firsthand, I think you will be of help in getting to the truth out of him, Hazen explains. I'm certainly flattered that I can be of use somewhere other than the battlefield. So you want me to get some answers out of him? Yes, you and Goruk will head the investigation. Me and Goruk? I ask, thinking it is an unlikely pairing. Yes, you don't have a problem with him, Hazen asks with a frown. I blink. No, not at all. Great idea. I blink again and tell myself to stop. Excellent. I thought as much. I think you'll make a great team. Valor, you have inside knowledge of them. We need to get information from him to help us in the cause. You can count on me, sir. I will do all I can, I state confidently. I must admit what information this elf is thought to possess must be extremely important. Hazen smiles at me. Good, I'll meet you over at the holding cells, but quick. Time is never on our side, he says, and quickly walks away. Well, this is certainly something for the books, a chance to put my human skills to good use. I grab my jacket and head through the camp. It gets bigger by the day, and I can feel there will be a bloody end to this war soon. I just hope we are on the winning side. The orcs are the only family I've ever had, and if they hadn't taken a chance on me when they found me, I probably would either be dead or forced to do tricks for some dirty-arsed elf. I reach the holding cell, and by the number of orc guards outside, they are treating this elf very seriously indeed. Any other would have been strung up long ago. Halt! One of them barks at me. Tather, it's me. I know, Valor, but I'm just doing my job, he says as quietly as possible. Okay, I get it. I cough, playing along. I'm here under orders from Hazen, to question the prisoner. Very well, you may enter, he states, moving out of the way and waving me through. I brush past him and lean in. All good with you? How's the kid? Great. Kid's gonna grow up an elf killer, he says proudly. Just like his dad, I remark, leaving him with a big smile on his face. An orc I don't recognise opens the door to the holding cells, and I walk in. It's dark and silent. I get a shiver. I can feel the presence of a dark elf close by. My stomach turns. Valor. Hazen's voice calls from down the hall. In here. I walk down the short corridor to where Hazien stands in a doorway to one of the rooms. He slips in and I follow, closing the door. I immediately notice Goruk standing in the corner, eyeing me. I don't think I have ever been this close to him before, and even I have to admit that he is one good-looking orc. His face may cut a handsome picture, but I don't care much for the look in his eyes. I've seen it before, arrogance. Goruk, this is Valor. She's here to assist in the questioning of the elf, Hazien states. There is silence, a silence I know this arrogant lump isn't going to fill. Good to be working with you, Goruk, I say with the best smile possible. Goruk just stares. Good, both of you know what to do. And remember, you don't breathe a word to anyone about this or what that elf tells you, only me. And probably best if you avoid social situations with the rest of the camp until this is done, he says, looking back and forth at us with intent. Understood, we both say together, awkwardly out of sync. With that, Hazien leaves the room. Goruk glares at me, his huge form dominating the room. This is not going to be easy. He coughs again, as if announcing he's about to speak. Okay, here's the thing. You have no place here. This is a job for an orc, not just any orc, an orc like me, he smugly tells me. I have my orders, I bite back. I will follow them through. You will do what you are told. You are a human, and you have no place here. He takes a step toward me. Yes, but I was raised by orcs, and I am going nowhere until I speak with the elf. His eyes dart in his head, and instead of coughing this time, he huffs.
Chapter 3. Goruk. This one has fire, at least for a human. Quite the beauty as well, as I study her slender body and her long blonde hair that curls around her shoulders. But it won't do. Listen, I say firmly. This is dangerous work. As a human, you have no business being involved. Did you not hear what I just said? Vala almost shouts at me, raising herself on her toes. Feisty, but no match for my intellect or my size. She's like a tiny flower before me, shivering in the wind. And if that elf will be looking for a way to exploit every weakness she has. I don't care if you were raised by the war god himself. We're dealing with a dark elf here. You might think you are the smartest orc around here, and that may be true, but you big hunk of lard, I may well be the smartest human. High bar. I expect her to fire back, but she relaxes instead. A little grin forms on her face that is quite sexy. Quite the charmer, aren't you, big fella? Vala says, crossing her arms. Now my gaze is drawn to her chest, but I have to focus and find a reply. So I've been told. My mind is a well-oiled machine that has not let me down. Her grin grows to a smile and silence descends. But it's her turn. Why is she not responding? I can't come back again. That's not the rules of debate. Okay, she finally says. Yes, I raise my left eyebrow. Now, smartass, I want you to listen to me. I'm only going to say this once. My mind goes into overdrive as I work through all the possible things she could say at this stage. I mean, she's done. She has no comeback. She's a human, intelligent, yes, but nonetheless, a human. Their skulls are tiny. They can't be keeping much in the way of brains in there. Look, dark elves are dangerous. I gesture at her small, curvy form. What are you going to do if it turns nasty? I honestly ask her. I can handle myself, she confidently tells me. Yes, I know you were raised by orcs. As if just being raised by orcs could teach her how to be one. If I were raised by humans, I'd be just as much of an orc. That doesn't make you an orc, sweetheart. What the hell do you mean by that? Vala says. I mean that you're a human, not an orc. Surely you've seen your reflection at some point. Excuse me, Vala snaps at me. I know Hyzen seems intent on humoring you, but he's more than humoring me, she snaps. He's given me and you a direct order. I'm going to interrogate this dark elf, and unless you want to go directly against his orders, you're going to help me do it. Takes every bit of self-control I have ever had not to throw her out right then, because she's right, damn it. For whatever reason, Hyzen's decided to force this human on me while I try my best to get actual work done. Unless I decide to challenge his authority, I'm stuck. An awkward silence descends. One Vala seems perfectly comfortable continuing. She smiles as though she's won something. That's when the door opens and an orc, whose name I do not know, rushes into the room. He looks between me and Vala, correctly reading our mutually irritable expressions. "Everything all right, Vala?" he says. "Yes, Tather, everything is okay. We're just working through a few things," Vala tells him with a smile. "Here if you need me," he proclaims and looks at me. I snarl at him and he hurries from the room. Is everyone in this clan on Team Vala? This is getting ridiculous. "Look," I tell her, "I didn't mean to upset you, but I stand by what I said. Facing a dark elf such as that little minion in there is a job for an orc and not a human." She looks me straight in the eye. "Okay, but Goruk, the fact remains that you and I are under orders," Vala tells me. I watch the confidence stream back into her body, and I watch her body. Such a fine body. Maybe time spent with a body like that is not a bad idea, anywhere but here. "You've said that," I tell her. "So if Hyzen, one of the most respected and intelligent orcs, second only to Malik, trusts that my input in this is required, why can't you see that? I do respect Hyzen, but everyone is capable of being wrong. With her pretty face, I can see how he might have been swayed. Since I can't deny orders, and since she won't relent, I'll have to find another way around this." "Okay, then you're right. We shall follow orders until those orders change," I say, already hatching my next move. "Thank you, Goruk. Can I offer you one piece of advice before we begin with our friend, the elf?" I ask him. "Of course," I reply. "In the future, try not to be such a massive ass clown."
Chapter 4. Valor. The dimly lit hallway separating us from the elf echoes our words off the stone walls. "I want to lead the interrogation." Goruk's arms cross as he glares at me. I stand my ground, meeting his gaze as he replies, "No, I do this. He's an elf, and we need to be respectful, at least to his face." Goruk lets out a loud snort. "We don't have time for all that," he says gruffly. "We go in there, ask him questions, and get the answers we need." He steps closer to me as if attempting to intimidate me with his size and stance. "It doesn't have to be that way," I argue. "We can still get our answers without being so forceful." I look over at the elf sitting in the cell. He looks scared and confused, not hostile or defiant like Goruk seems to think. Or is the elf putting up some sort of act? They're known to be deceptive, and I notice how on edge Goruk seems as he approaches the elf. He carries his body differently than he did earlier, as though he's ready for an attack. Regardless, we'll get more information if we play along. Goruk doesn't seem convinced, though. He shakes his head and steps back from me with a huff of annoyance. "Fine," he says reluctantly, clearly unhappy but willing to defer to my judgment for now. I take a deep breath before turning back towards the cell door and entering the room with Goruk following behind me, silently weighing heavy on my shoulders like an invisible burden. We approach the elf, slowly but purposefully, letting him know we are here for business, not pleasure. The air between us is thick with suspicion, yet despite this initial tension, I give the elf a warm smile and try to start the interrogation off on a sweet note. "I'm Valor. What's your name?" He doesn't look up. "I'm sure they've told you my name." "You'd be surprised," I say, shooting a meaningful look at Goruk. Hyzen filled me in, of course, but I think I might be able to play off my natural antagonism with Goruk. "I am called Caspian." The tall, lean elf looks up at me. He can't quite hide the natural cunning in his eyes, but he does look subdued. "So, tell me something about yourself," I say gently as I take a seat across from him. "What are you like when you're not stuck in this cell?" Caspian looks at me with surprise before his expression oozes from self-pity into disdain. He leans back in his chair and arches an eyebrow, giving me a condescending smirk that makes my skin crawl. "What do you think?" he replies evenly. "I'm on this planet, whose idea of civilization is building a new tent that smells slightly less like excrement than the first." His words drip with sarcasm, and it's all I can do to maintain my composure. Goruk bristles, but Caspian interrupts him. "Are you okay, beautiful? You seem a bit upset. Any real questions for me?" The elf purrs to me, his eyes running their way over my body as I hold my tongue between my teeth. He opens his mouth to speak again. I interrupt him to offer a different approach before Goruk decides to strangle him. "What if we talk about something else?" I offer in a softer tone. "Like something from your homeland. Do you have any interesting stories or tales you could share with us?" Caspian's expression changes, and he looks away for a moment before turning back towards me. "Where I come from, there are buildings so tall, you have to crane your neck up to see them. Theatres, art, culture." He looks brittle for a moment. "Magic?" I frown. I've read a few books from before the orcs invaded. It almost sounds as though he's talking about Earth in the past. But we never had any magic, at least not according to the myths I've been told. There's so much we don't know about the dark elves and where they come from. One day they just began to pour in from the north with deadly, dangerous magic. Could he be telling the truth? Is there part of this world we haven't discovered yet? Goruk snorts. One day in solitary and he's already gone mad. His eyes glide over to Goruk, and his sneer returns. "Of course, we have orcs and humans there too. They know their place. We make sure of that." Goruk's had enough. He leans over the investigation table, hands splayed as though to demonstrate how easy it would be for him to physically remove Caspian's head from his neck. "Why did you want to be captured?" he demands. "Stop playing games." Caspian winks at me. "I think this little human likes playing with me, don't you?" "Is that all?" Goruk asks, his voice harsh as I furrow my brows and speak over him. What he means to say is that we're limited on time, and it would be helpful if you could help us out a bit. I hear the quiet scoff of annoyance from behind me, and the elf pretends to pout as he looks between us. "Help you out with what?" The elf smiles, and he stares directly at Goruk. "What could you possibly want to know from little old me?" I can sense Goruk becoming more and more agitated as he stands behind me, but I keep my focus on the elf and maintain a gentle expression on my face. "I'm sure that anything you can share would be helpful," I say softly, giving him a sympathetic look. "Helpful for both of us, right? I'm sure you miss your home, that you miss talking about it at least." I bite my lip, playing up my looks. I'm not ignorant of my own charms. If they can persuade the elf to slip up and share something incriminating, like where the dark elves are getting their magic, I'm not above using them. The elf looks away for a moment before turning back towards me with a sad, almost conflicted expression. He nods slowly before sinking back into his chair with a sigh, clearly not wanting to speak any further. So much for that. Goruk steps forward and grabs me by the arm, pulling me away from the cell before slamming the door shut behind us. "What the hell was that?" he yells, his voice echoing off the cold stone walls. I swallow hard and look up at him, trying to keep my composure despite my shaking hands and racing heart. It's not that his outburst frightens me. I'm used to orcs, accustomed to their outbursts. There's just something about him. It irritates me, sets me on edge, makes me feel as though my skin is a bit too tight. "I was just trying to give him a chance, Goruk," I explain in a bored voice. He cuts me off and drops my arm from his grasp. "You sounded like you were flirting with him. Are you really that hard up for it?" I scoff slightly, straightening my back and pushing him away from me. "No, I'm not. I was trying to be kind and understanding. Not everything needs to be blunt and aggressive, Goruk. Sometimes kindness goes a long way in getting the results we need. I want answers as much as you do." Goruk stares at me, eyes wide as he processes my words before abruptly turning away. "This is stupid," he mutters. "You're dismissed. We'll pick this up later." His words sound strained as he walks off in anger. I watch as he leaves, trying to get my own anger under control while the guards lock the cell. I take one last look at the elf before turning to leave, feeling a mix of emotions as I try to process everything that just happened. On one hand, I'm proud of myself for standing up to Goruk and trying to approach the interrogation with kindness and understanding rather than brute force. But on the other hand, I can't shake the feeling that I may have crossed a line with the elf by being too soft or flirtatious. As I walk down the stone hallway, I can't help but replay Caspian's story in my mind. As sarcastic as he was, I can tell that he misses his home. I try to imagine a world with buildings, with real civilization. I find myself wanting to hear more. I shake my head, trying to refocus on the task at hand. We need information, not stories.
Chapter 5. Goruk. My blood boils. I storm my way toward Hyzen's tent, orcs quickly moving out of my way as I rush by them. The afternoon wind was cool and refreshing against my skin, but it did nothing to calm the storm brewing inside me. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't push thoughts of Valor and that elf from my mind. The way they spoke with one another could only be described as intimate, like two old friends reunited after years apart. To make matters worse, Caspian kept looking her up and down with that smug smirk on his face. He clearly enjoyed whatever game he was playing with her. Interrogations should be brutal, not whatever the hell was happening in there. I see the flaps of Hyzen's tent open, and I walk right by the guards to see him standing in front of our war map, marking spots passively. In his right hand is a cup of tea. He doesn't even look up for a moment, despite the fact that my shoulders are rising and dropping dramatically in time with my heaving breaths. His head turns up to look at me, lifting his arm in greeting as I slam my fist down on the table. "What are you thinking?" Hyzen stands up straight, the older orc only slightly taller than me. "Goruk, show respect." I grit my teeth, breathing heavily as I take a short breath before continuing more politely. "My apologies, but letting Vala come to the interrogation was a bad idea." Hyzen leans forward on the table, eyes narrowed at me. "Why?" "She's a soft human," I explain, voice tinged with worry and annoyance. "Too sweet to pull information from someone like Caspian. He's a manipulative elf." I can almost feel Hyzen's palpable anger emanating from him, and despite his years of experience in battle, he looks lost for words. "You should have seen how he played her in there. She was practically begging him to take her. I've never seen an interrogation like this in my life. He has all his teeth, all his fingers." "I understand your concern, Goruk," Hyzen says finally, his voice low and tight. "But Vala is a skilled interrogator. She may be human, but she has proven herself to be a valuable asset to our cause, and Caspian is not invincible." I shift my weight from one foot to the other, feeling restless and unsure. "A human is no match for an elf, Hyzen. He's toying with her, with both of us. I don't buy his weak act for a second. The moment she lets down her guard, he could actually hurt her." He sighs heavily and turns away from me, looking out towards the hills beyond our camp. "You may be right." His voice is low but resolute as he turns back towards me once more. "But she's got guts, and that's what we need here." He furrows his brow in thought before continuing. "We'll have to take extra precautions when interrogating Caspian. You're going to be there with her so she'll feel safe." I hesitate, unsure of what he's suggesting. "But why her?" Hyzen smiles knowingly and takes a sip from his cup. "Vala is a powerful woman, Goruk," he says with finality. "She's been a spy for the orcs during her time in the elven territories, and has valuable information about the dark elves that could be very helpful to this process." My heart stops for a moment, and I stare at him in disbelief. Vala had been a spy? I hadn't expected that, but it did make sense. After all, she had survived those months living among the elves, which meant she knew how to get information out of them, even dark elves like Caspian. I nod slowly as Hyzen looks back at me with an expectant expression. My anger is replaced with admiration as I realize what Vala is capable of. She wasn't flirting with him at all. She was playing him. Hyzen sees the look on my face and nods in agreement. She's got skills, Goruk. We need to use them to our advantage. All right, I say finally, voice low as understanding finally dawns on me. Let's do this then. Hyzen grins triumphantly and pours himself another cup of tea. He looks from me to the door before gesturing slightly. Can I have a moment to myself, please? I was in the middle of something when you arrived. I nod quickly, bowing to Hyzen before bidding him goodbye. I leave Hyzen's tent, perplexed over Vala's behavior. I stride through the camp, passing tents and campsites on my way to mine. The sun is setting in the sky, painting a deep orange hue across the landscape and casting an orange glow across my face. I turn away from it for a moment and gaze off into the distance as I continue walking. Thoughts of Vala keep spinning around in my mind as I head back to my tent, and I can't help but wonder what it must have been like for her acting as a spy deep in elven territory. I have to admit that she's brave, even if her interrogation techniques are soft and foolish. But it doesn't lessen the irritation. I'm not sure what it is she makes me feel. No matter how hard I think about it, I can't quite put my finger on what is driving this strange feeling inside me. All I know is that something deep within me is stirred up by Vala's actions. I ponder these dilemmas as I enter my tent, searching for answers that may never come. But I can't help but wonder if Vala was like this with all the elves when she was a spy, or if it was a new interrogation technique she picked up just for today. Did the elves trust her when she was a spy? They must have if she made it back with her head still attached. It's so strange to think of her in this context. As I sit down on my bed, I can feel the weight of the day bearing down on me. But I can't shake the image of Vala from my mind, the way she had looked at me during the interrogation, her eyes filled with fire and determination. I can't deny the pull I felt towards her then, and it only intensifies now as I think back on it. I shake my head, trying to dispel the thoughts swirling in my mind. Vala is an interrogation partner, nothing more, I remind myself sternly. But as I close my eyes and allow myself to rest, the image of her fierce determination continues to haunt my thoughts. The sound of her voice echoes in my head, and I am filled with a sudden longing that I cannot explain. I try to push it aside to focus on the task at hand, but I find myself unable to shake off the feeling that there is so much more to Vala than what I have seen thus far. Rosenfire, our family holds great weight and power in Orthani, and yet I hear whispers.
Do you think he can take him?
There is no way that this could happen.
No, more books. I can't remain locked in this ivory tower a moment longer.
She's perfect. The Baron's daughter must be found.
Julius, we shouldn't.
Why shouldn't we?
I am not a full dark elf. I do not possess their ethereal beauty. How will I find a mate?
The lowly Baron's son apparently has shown that he has the same gift of fire-wielding as I, if not stronger.
I am the family's dirty little secret. I am not the future of the family. Dukan is.
This world was created from a seed of evil.
I propose we take Dukan out of the picture, permanently.
Please, let me go.
If you want to join the poor humans who are bought and sold in the markets on a daily basis, you will find a way to get there.
I am free, and I am terrified.
You will never escape me.
I can try.
You will fail. Get seasons 1 and 2 of the Dark Elf series from worldsofprothika.com.
Prothika's magic is eternal. This series will show you why. Chapter 6. Valor. I didn't see Goruk in the mess hall, not that I would have even noticed him before yesterday. The training dummy standing in front of me looks a little too elfish, and with a hard smack it bobbles back and forth. I wish you were Goruk. The dummy bobbles again. I swing around and slam the side of my blade into the elf's legs and knock the striking dummy up. It falls with a loud clatter, and I groan as I drop my sword to pick it back up. I need a beefier dummy. Goruk was unbelievably dismissive toward me, as if I'm just some cowardly human who he needs to manage. A child, that's what he views me as. Stupid, arrogant, useless orc. I stab my sword into the dummy, hearing fabric rip as a slow trickle of pebbles and gravel start to pour out of the hole I created. The way he had the audacity to ask if I was hard up for it. That question alone brought a boil of heat in my stomach. Rage. Definitely rage. I batter the dummy a few more times, my breathing heavy as I take a second to get my composure. I'm just as smart as him, just as tough. Why does he think of me like some baby who can't handle a simple elf? I examine the dummy again. It's missing a leg, as well as left arm. I grip my sword and shove it into the torso, and it takes about a fourth of the dummy with it. I have a bad feeling I know what this is going to become. I slice and I stab and I hack until its leg and arm are gone, but the dummy's torso remains. I tightly grip my sword and scream, throwing my full body weight into my blade. It very nearly cleaves the torso in half. I pull out a dagger and stab it into the weak point, chopping along the separation. It feels good to destroy something for a change. I need to burn off some of this rage. I don't know why I let Goruk get to me so much. Well, I do, but it just seems so unfair. I sheath my sword and pace along the room, my feet scraping the gravel on the ground. I know why it bothers me so much, though. He's a proven fighter, brave and smart. To him, I'm just some human who hasn't seen warfare. I pause and look at the pile of broken dummies behind me. Maybe I can find something more suitable there. I walk over to it, and I'm not sure what I should grab. Then I spot one sitting in the corner, a bit apart from the others. It looks perfect. Big enough to be a decent challenge, but with just enough give that it won't be too hard on my sword. I take hold of it and yank it away from the rest of them, dragging it through the gravel as I make my way away from the pile. As soon as I start moving away, I can feel someone's eyes boring holes into my back. When I turn, I see Goruk. He's watching me, an amused light in his eyes as though I'm a child putting on a show. I can't let him get to me. No matter what he says or does, I'm never going to be the kind of person who hides my feelings, not if it means losing a fight. Goruk may be a great fighter, but he'd make a terrible spy. Hazen knows that I'm an asset. That's all that should matter. His loud and abrasive demeanour gives away his true emotions too easily, and one day in an interrogation room was all it took to see that he isn't great at hiding how he feels when faced with challenging situations. He tends to act before thinking, and his lack of subtlety would surely give him away if he ever had to conceal information or even keep his mouth shut. Elves are tricky, deceptive. Orcs say the same thing about humans, that we're deceptive because we're so weak. I look at Goruk, who's still standing with his bulky arms crossed. He raises an eyebrow. Just pretend it's his face on the dummy, I mutter to myself. I'll show him weak. I pull the dummy away and place it against the wall, clearing a path from one end of the room to the other. My anger has cooled down, at least for now. But now I have a chance to prove him wrong, and this dummy is going to help me do that. You want a show? I swing around and examine the dummy. It's made of some sort of hide, I can tell, probably bear hide from the looks of it. And, to my surprise, there's a set of ridges built into its sides, not like scales, but something more like armour plating, perfect for delivering powerful strikes without worrying about damaging my sword too much. I take a few steps back and almost instantly slip into my battle stance. Feet apart, weight centred over both legs, arms outstretched with sword in hand. I can feel Goruk watching me, and it only heightens my focus as I make the first strike. The sound of metal screeching against leather reverberates throughout the room as I drive forward with all my power behind my sword. The ridges on the dummy do their job perfectly, distributing force evenly across its body, while simultaneously protecting me from hard impacts that would otherwise chip away at my blade's edge. Then I start to get creative, switching between slices and stabs while attacking from different angles and directions. With each movement, I can feel myself getting stronger and faster, every strike another step towards mastering my own fighting style. I didn't know I had it in me. Somehow I'm actually enjoying myself. I don't even mind the fact that Goruk is watching me. I can't remember the last time I was this enthusiastic about training. I don't even know if I've ever been this enthusiastic about training. I take a step back and stop to catch my breath. I stare down at the destroyed dummy, feeling exhilarated and exhausted. Every muscle in my body aches with effort, but I can feel a sense of superiority swelling within me. Even if Goruk doesn't see it, I know that I'm getting better every day. I take a few moments to collect myself before picking up the broken pieces of the dummy and carrying them over to the pile. I stand there for an eternity, just thinking about my next move, until finally, a soft laughter bubbles up from my chest. Then I start repairing the dummies so I can do it all again.
Chapter 7. Goruk. I can't help but stare at Vala as she practices her swordplay in the clearing, the sunlight glinting off her blade. Damn, she's sexy. The way she moves, it's like she was born with a sword in her hand. Precise, practiced, graceful. I grudgingly admit to myself that even though her strength is nothing compared to an orc's, there's something about her that draws me in. Stop it, Goruk, I mutter under my breath, trying to shake off my attraction to her. I shouldn't want a human, let alone one who wields a weapon with such finesse. The sight of her, sweat dripping down her face as she lunges and parries, arouses me in ways I don't want to acknowledge. I'm an orc. I should be drawn to our own kind's rough, brutal beauty, not the delicate, fragile frame of a human woman. Yet every time Vala ducks under a branch or leaps over a rock, my body betrays me, stirring desires I've never felt before. I know other orcs take humans. Hell, many swear by them. But they've never held any appeal for me. I don't like my women meek and timid, fragile. I like orcish women, strong women, women who give just as much as they get. Ah, Vala grunts as she tears through the dummy and the sound goes straight to my shaft. I can't help but imagine her making those sounds in my bed. I try to push aside my lustful thoughts, but despite my best efforts, I can't tear my eyes away from her. Vala's lithe form dances through the forest like a nymph, her laughter infectious when she manages to strike a practice dummy dead on. Ugh, what's happening to me? I groan internally, feeling torn between my natural orcish instincts and this sudden, inexplicable attraction to a human female. I can't afford to let these feelings distract me. We have an assignment to complete, and I need to stay focused if we want to succeed. I can't interrogate a dark elf with her if I'm thinking about doing her on the interrogation table. As I watch her resume her deadly dance, the conflict within me rages on. I know I shouldn't want Vala, but it seems that my body has other ideas. This is a dangerous game we're playing, and I can only hope that my newfound desires won't lead us all to ruin. Didn't know you had a thing for human females, Goruk, a gravelly voice says from behind me, nearly making me jump out of my skin. Lanthic, I growl, turning to face a fellow orc with a crooked grin in one eye. What do you want? Nothing, he chuckles, glancing past me at Vala. Just never thought I'd see the day when the mighty Goruk would be caught lusting over a human girl. All that stuff you talk about orcs who take humans. Can't blame you for this one, though. Watch your mouth, I snap, feeling my blood boil as he ogles her. Touchy, aren't we? Lanthic laughs, not taking his gaze off Vala. I'm just saying, brother, human women are dangerous. They may not be as strong as us orcs, but they're twice as wily, addictive, and once you get a taste... Shut up, I snarl, grabbing him by the shoulder and forcibly turning him away from Vala. I don't want to hear any more of your filthy talk. All right, he says, raising his hands in surrender. But you can't deny there's something about her that's intriguing. Enough! I shout, my fists clench so tightly that my knuckles turn pale green. This conversation is over. Fine, Lanthic concedes, grinning wickedly. But remember what I said, Goruk. Human women have a way of getting under your skin. Don't let your guard down. Like I need you to tell me that, I mutter. But deep down, I know he's right. There's something about Vala that stirs up emotions I've never felt before, and it scares me. The last thing I need is for my desires to compromise our mission, or worse, put us all in danger. I don't trust Caspian. There's a reason he's here, and I don't think it's because he's dying to share secret information with orcs. I force myself to focus attention away from her, pushing Vala and her alluring beauty to the back of my mind. But as I watch Vala train, I can't help but worry that Lanthic's words might be true. For now, though, all I can do is stay vigilant and hope that my attraction to Vala remains nothing more than a fleeting distraction. You're still doing it, Lanthic remarks smugly. Now come on, we'll be late. Enough of your nonsense, I snarl, shoving him down the path. The dust rises in small puffs under his boots as he stumbles, but he catches himself and walks beside me with a wicked grin plastered on his face. All right, Lanthic says, chuckling. I'll drop it, he mocks, raising his hands in surrender. Good, I reply. So, how's the prisoner? You know I can't talk about that, I growl, suppressing the urge to throttle the life out of him. He should know better than to ask. I focus on the distant outline of Heisen's tent, the imposing figure of our leader silhouetted against the dying sunlight. But I hear you got a dressing down from Hazen yesterday, I casually drop in, knowing it will embarrass him. A misunderstanding, he quickly replies, sobering up at the mention of Heisen. Yes, getting caught with your pants down while on duty is an unfortunate misunderstanding. The words slip slyly out of my mouth. Lanthic remains silent as I chuckle to myself. Lanthic isn't one to lecture me on humans. As we walk, I find myself wrestling with my feelings once more. The image of Vala's lithe form and practiced movements burns itself into my mind, igniting a fire deep within me. My pulse quickens, and I can't help but wonder if there's a part of me that yearns for something beyond the brutal world of the orcs, something forbidden, something dangerous. Love. We reach Hazian's tent. He stands outside. He searches my face as I try to conceal my thoughts of Vala. Something bothering you, Goruk? Heisen asks. Nothing, sir, I say. Just thinking a few things through, that's all. Always thinking about something, aren't you, Goruk? That's what I like about you, he replies, raising an eyebrow. What's it this time? I think Goruk may be wrestling with his inner orc, Lanthic enjoys saying as I glare at him. Hazian turns to Lanthic. And Lanthic, good to see you with your trousers up. Apologies once again, sir, Lanthic says, bowing his head. Hazen invites us into his tent. I wave Lanthic through with a grin.
Chapter 8. Valor. Valor, Jarek whispers, but I ignore him. I'm nice and warm, and there's nothing else in the world I want to do but sleep. Valor, wake up, Jarek says, slightly louder. Again, I ignore him, but feel there must be a reason for him coming to wake me. Right now, I don't want to remember. I can sense him pacing awkwardly about my tent, wondering what to do next. For the sake of the war god, will you get up? Jarek says in an annoyed tone. I groan as I open my eyelids. I must arrive on time. If I am late, it'll only give that big oaf ammunition against me. I'd told Jarek to wake me if I hadn't left my tent as dawn broke, but I still have the urge to shove him out of my tent and get back to sleep. Mornings have never been my time of day. I hate waking up early, but today I have no choice. There's another interview with Caspian on the schedule. Finally, Jarek says. I look at him and force a smile. Thank you, Jarek. I'm going back to bed, he tells me as he turns and leaves the tent. Ugh, I mumble, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. My body aches from yesterday's training, and I curse under my breath as I force myself out of bed. Swinging my legs over the edge, I plant my feet firmly on the floor and push upward. The room's cold air sends shivers down my spine, and I'm suddenly awake, fueled by pure spite. Damn you, Goruk, I mutter, looking around the cold tent. It's not even light outside yet. I wonder if I could have 10 more minutes. No, you can't, I tell myself. You'll just keep giving yourself 10 minutes more until you are late. So, no, you can't. Jarek has left a fresh bowl of water, half a bit of loaf, and some cheese on my table. He's a big softy, a big brother, always looking out for me. As the water splashes against my skin, washing away the fatigue and soreness, I can't help but think of the smug look on Goruk's face if he were to catch me unprepared. I won't let that happen. No, today, I'll be punctual, professional, and focused. I slip on some clean clothes, making sure I look decent. The clock ticks relentlessly, mocking my every move. But as I grab the food Jarek has left for me, I stride out the door. I know I'm making good time. I'll be early for our meeting at the prison, and Goruk won't have any reason to judge me. The camp is calm, and the sound of orcs snoring drowns out the birdsong. As I walk toward the holding cells, I find a spring in my step. A beautiful day to interrogate a dark elf, I say, my voice dripping with sarcasm as I walk through the crisp morning air. The birds are singing, the sun is rising. As I approach the prison, I notice something that makes my blood boil. Goruk is already there. He leans casually against the stone wall with a smug grin. He probably slept outside it last night, just so he could beat me here. Ah, Valor, he says, his voice calm and calculated. I'm impressed you managed to wake yourself up this early. Save it, I snap, trying to keep my composure. Let's just get on with the interview. Of course, Goruk replies, still grinning as he pushes himself from the wall. After you. Despite my best efforts, Goruk has beaten me once again. But I refuse to let him see how much it bothers me. As we walk into the prison together, I take a deep breath and steel myself for the task at hand. Today, I will be unshakable, no matter what Goruk throws my way. The iron door creaks open, and we step past the guards into the dimly lit chamber. Caspian, our prisoner, sits on a wooden bench, bound and bruised. His eyes flicker between Goruk and me as we settle into our chairs across from him. Today, Goruk announces, calm and authoritative, I'll lead the questioning. My eyebrows shoot up in surprise, but I don't argue. There's something about how he says it, not aggressively, but with a quiet confidence that makes me want to follow his lead. It's infuriating. Good morning, Caspian, Goruk says, never taking his eyes off Caspian. He doesn't wait for my approval, but I can't help feeling a grudging respect for his assertiveness. Ah, it's my 2 new friends from before, Caspian says with a grin. Beauty and, well, the... Sleep well? I say, cutting him off. As if you and I had made love for hours and held each other in arms on a bed of flowers, my pretty one. The elf leers at me, but I can tell from the quick look at Goruk who he's trying to rile up. If Goruk notices, he doesn't show it. His face remains impassive, almost disinterested. Where were you travelling to? Goruk asks him. When you attacked and slaughtered my men, Caspian says. Yes, and when you killed one of yours. Seems odd, don't you think? Goruk asks, his eyes narrowing slightly. Mere mercy. If I hadn't killed him, you would have. True. Caspian asks, bringing his finger to his lips. I haven't killed you, Goruk points out, leaning back in his chair, and he was my enemy. The elf was on your side. My side. How do you know what side I am on? Caspian says, Well, you certainly aren't on our side. Goruk stares intently at Caspian, his brow furrowed in concentration. I can see him taking mental notes, piecing together the elf's words like a puzzle. And with each passing moment, I realise there's more to Goruk than meets the eye. I've heard that he's intelligent, but this is my first time seeing that supposed brilliance in action. Even Caspian seems disoriented. Who says I am not? Caspian states. I'd like to know more about that, Goruk says. Certainly, we have all the time in this most beautiful and depraved world. Caspian continues to hold his finger over his mouth as if guarding a secret. It's clear you know something that would be of value to us, I say and glance toward Goruk, who signals his approval. It ought to annoy me, but for some reason my pulse picks up. Oh, your voice sends shivers from my head to my… well, you know. Caspian winks at me, and my stomach turns, but I smile at him. There have been rumours about you, Goruk says, leaning closer to Caspian to gauge his reaction. What rumours? Caspian seems a little shaken by that. Goruk just smiles. Were you looking for something, Caspian? Something important? Something so important you couldn't risk letting one of your men squeal? Caspian stares. His left eye twitches, but the rest of his face is calm. It certainly was a good gamble, Goruk continues. Killing your own man to try and win our confidence. But you forget that we know your kind well. Deception, breathing, it's all the same to you, isn't it? Goruk tilts his head. Did you think I would come in here blind? I know more than you think, Caspian. My leaders know more than you think. All of this is a mere formality, just trying to wring out whatever pathetic secrets you think you still hold. He's bluffing. I know he's bluffing. I know it. But I still find myself wondering what else he might know, if Hyzen has told him anything in secret. And if I'm second-guessing myself, Caspian must be too. Goruk's in complete control of the situation, and his confidence is magnetic. This man, who I've spent time despising and trying to outdo, now has my full attention, in more ways than one. My cheeks flush with a mixture of embarrassment and desire. Valor, Goruk says suddenly, turning to me. Do you have any further questions for our prisoner? I shake my head, trying to regain my composure. No, I think we have reached a conclusion for today. Hold on, Caspian says, a hint of desperation in his voice. What rumours? If you'll excuse us. Goruk rises from his seat, and I follow suit. As we leave the chamber, he turns to me and delivers a knowing wink. We exit the room, leaving Caspian to twitch nervously in his seat. Nice work, I reply, struggling to steady my voice. You too, he says, his eyes dancing with amusement. As we walk away from the prison, I can't help but replay the scene in my mind. Goruk's calm confidence, his intelligence, and the unexpected attraction I felt towards him. And despite all my efforts to resist it, I know that my perception of Goruk has changed.
Chapter 9. Goruk. Vala, I grunt as I approach the holding cells, surprised to see her waiting there for me the next day. You're early. Yes, I am, she says, a smug grin on her face. Never one to lie in bed all day, especially on such a beautiful day like today. She's lying. I have it on good authority that she bribes Jarek with her morning rations just to have him wake her early. I'm sure, I reply. Well, at least she's eager, and even I have to admit that we worked well together yesterday, following my lead, of course. I like what you did yesterday, she tells me. I'm flattered by that because I'm a damned fool, and I try to ignore it. I'm not going to be one of the orcs in camp like Jarek. She keeps wound around her little finger. Thank you, I reply. I'll take the lead again today. Fine by me, she nods. We enter the dimly lit cells together, the stench of old stone and pine wood filling my nostrils. Vala falls in step behind me, clearly content to let me take the lead after my success with yesterday's interrogation. We find Caspian sitting upright in his chair, examining his nails. "And a very good morning to both of you," Caspian says with a grin. "I trust the sun still shines outside these walls." "So far," Valor says. "Good, good. I'd hate the sun to grieve at my absence," he says, looking at Goruk. "The sun will be fine without you," I tell him. "Although when it rains, the roof here is a bit patchy. A pity, we really should get around to fixing it." Then the elf begins to sing, in an odd, childlike pitch. "Oh, the sun won't shine without me. The birds won't sing without me. The grass won't grow, and the sky won't snow when I'm dead and gone." I notice Vala looking at me, and I look back at her, and know we're both thinking the same thing. Is the solitary confinement getting to him? Or is this just another ploy? "An elf of many talents, it seems," Vala says. Time to cut to the chase. "Perhaps you'd like to elaborate on what we spoke about yesterday," I suggest, knowing he probably won't bite. But it's a start. "How can I elaborate on something I know nothing about? Your rumors belong to you, not me." He smiles. Clever little bastard. "Okay, I'm going to be straight with you here. Nothing adds up. Traveling with such a small guard, killing one of your own elves, and not putting up a fight when cornered. Doesn't cry dark elf to me." Caspian hesitates before speaking, his voice barely above a whisper. "Then I'll be straight also, Orc. I'll talk, but only if you guarantee my safety." I can't help but snort at his demand. Elves are so dishonorable. If an orc had been bested in battle like this, they'd be ashamed to beg for their life. No self-respecting orc would ever degrade themselves like this. It's why orc prisoners are useless for anything other than forced labor. "Your safety?" I growl, baring my fangs. "You think you're in any position to make demands?" "I know things. Important things. Just promise me protection, and I'll tell you everything," Caspian tells me. "You've given me no reason to believe anything you say." Caspian blinks, affecting an innocent face. "What? Your rumors don't say how trustworthy I am." His grin turns sharp. "I'm sure they mention how important it is that you keep me alive until I tell you all I know. Which I will, once you promise me I can still breathe this awful, fetid earth air." I need to keep calm, but he's starting to get under my skin. "Speak now," I demand, slamming my fist against the cold stone wall beside him. But even then, the dark elf remains evasive, his eyes darting between Vala and myself. He smiles lasciviously at Vala. "You know, back home, human girls are a bit in fashion. Everyone I know has bedded one at least once. So warm and soft, delicious, especially when you make them scream." My anger boils over and I grab Caspian by his collar, yanking him closer. "Listen to me, you sniveling little wretch. You will tell us what we need to know, or I swear on my ancestors' graves that I will rip your head off right here in this tent and apologize to Hyzen later." Caspian meets my gaze with surprising defiance for someone so thoroughly beaten. "You can't afford to kill me," he spits out, veins bulging at his temples. "The moment you kill me, the information I possess dies with me, something your fellow orcs will not be happy about." "Is that so?" I snarl, my grip tightening around his throat. The temptation to snap his neck like a twig is nearly overwhelming. Vala steps in, placing a hand on my arm. "Goruk, stop," she says gently, her eyes flickering between mine and Caspian's. Reluctantly, I release my grip on the dark elf, stepping back. Vala pulls me outside of his cell into the hallway. She steps close, keeping her voice low. "I know he's a bastard. Let me take over for a bit so you can cool down." "Fine," I growl, crossing my arms over my chest and glaring down at the elf's cell door. "But if you try flirting with him like the first time, I might just lose control and kill him anyway." As soon as the words leave my mouth, I realize how they must sound. My cheeks flush with embarrassment, but Vala merely smirks, smoothing over my unintended outburst. "Oh, Goruk, jealous much? Don't worry. I have no intentions of flirting with him. We'll get the answers we need one way or another. I don't answer. I can't. There's something about the almost cruel tilt of her lips that feels like a punch to my gut. Instead, I follow her silently, standing in the back of the cell like some sort of guard, while Vala slides into the seat in front of him. Now let's try this again, Caspian, Vala says, crossing her legs. The pleasure is all mine, Caspian says, relaxing back in his chair. I listen, and though her methods are less forceful, I can't help but feel a sense of satisfaction as the dark elf's defiance starts to waver. This time, we will get the answers we seek. Or I'll convince Hyzen to just let me pummel the information we need out of him. Caspian's eyes dart between Vala and me, uncertainty flickering in their depths. Cowardice or an act? Possibly both. Vala tilts her head, her voice taking on a softer tone. I will negotiate with you, Caspian, but Goruk will be right behind me. He's not one for patience. I growl menacingly, my fingers twitching at my side, itching to crush this insolent elf. Vala raises an eyebrow at Caspian, urging him to reconsider his options. As much as I enjoy our little one-to-one time, my dear, I'm afraid both our hands are tied, Caspian says, his gaze oozing confidence. I want your assurance that I'll be safe. Vala sighs, her expression softening just a touch. That is a two-way street. Her words hang in the air, heavy with unspoken consequences. Of which I have taken the first steps. I have told you that I have information that is very useful to you. In return, I have asked for my safety to be guaranteed, the elf states. I expect nothing but lies, but I'm noticing a sincerity in his words, which puzzles me further. Yes, but you have to understand, Vala pauses. We need something more concrete. I suggest you make some cement, then. Caspian smiles. My temper boils again, and I lunge at the slimy bastard and grab him by the throat. No, Goruk! Vala shouts. Feigning reluctance, and I pull back. Playing the bad guy in this interrogation at least allows me to work out some of my frustration. Caspian fixes himself and grins. You need to sort out this good human, bad orc routine. It's not really working. Vala raises herself from her seat and looks Caspian dead in the eye. Okay, Caspian, here is what is going to happen. I want you to have a good think tonight, because come tomorrow morning, I'm going to watch as Goruk here cuts off your balls. I play along and rub my hands together with glee. I watch Caspian pale. You'll hit those high notes with ease, Vala continues. He does like singing, I agree. Vala exchanges a look with me, her eyes full of mischief. As much as I hate to admit it, her methods have proven effective. We leave the interrogation room, the dark elf trembling and pale, but alive. Vala, I start, unsure of what to say. She cuts me off with a gentle smile. That temper of yours could have messed everything up, she scolds. Her sharp tone pulls at something inside me, a warmth blossoming despite the violence that lingers in my veins. Yes, but now he really does think I might cut off his balls. I can't help the ghost of a smile that tugs at my lips. Her eyes are sharp as she looks at me. Tomorrow. We'll get him to tell us everything tomorrow. We almost have him, I can tell.
Chapter 10. Valor. Normally we'd split off here, but I find myself walking side by side with Goruk, passing the training centre. Do you think he's bluffing? I ask. I don't know yet. Goruk says honestly. What do you mean? I probe him, interested. Something is working in his mind. He seems different. I sensed a desperation from him, a frustration that we weren't playing ball. Goruk tells me, his frown thick with thought. What do you think we should do? I ask him. Bring a blunt knife tomorrow. Goruk laughs. But as tempted as I am, I bet Hyzen would draw the line at castration. Goruk rarely laughs, and I find that I like it. It's rough and unpracticed, but warm. Well, we shook him up at least, I say. We might have, but I can't trust anything he says, and even less of how he acts. He might not be acting in the dark elves' interests, but something tells me that his own interests still might not be in our favour. He is certainly different, I'll give him that. But yes, I can see what you mean about an underlying frustration with us. I knew there was something, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. I tell Goruk, who looks at me with approval. He doesn't like that we're not buying his story. Don't worry, all will reveal itself in time. It always does, he says, smiling at me. If only we had a little more of it. There is comfortable silence between us, just for a second. Goruk looks up at me and smiles, his eyes crinkling with a warmth that I haven't seen before. I feel my cheeks heat up as his gaze lingers on mine, and I quickly look away, feeling flustered, but also strangely content. We both know it's time to get on with our tasks for the day, but neither seems willing to move. The day's discussion, I must admit, bar the Caspian puzzle to solve, has been fun, and we're both unsure how to end it. Do we want to? We begin walking, and I realise we're still heading in the same direction. The silence between us feels less tense than before, and I find myself wanting to fill it with something more. Have you tried the biscuits from the new chef in the mess tent? I blurt out, hoping to spark some conversation. They're awful. Goruk chuckles. I thought it was just me. They taste like rocks. I almost broke a tooth. Right, I laugh. But nobody wants to say anything because he's this huge ex-warrior who took up cooking. Ah, yes, the one who keeps trying to play the lute, Goruk adds, rolling his eyes. All day long those off-key notes echo through the camp. Exactly. I can't help but smile at our shared annoyance. This is the first real conversation we've ever had that wasn't an argument or about Caspian. We walk further. I breathe in the warm scent of the day, and I feel a peace wash over me. I think to myself when I felt like this last, and I can't remember. Oh, did you hear about Lanthic? I giggle. Oh yes, the whole camp heard about that one. Goruk gives me a knowing smile. Do you think what they are saying is true? I probe him, enjoying the light touch of our conversation. I'd certainly hope it wasn't true, but I've known Lanthic a long time now, and let's just say sometimes his baser urges get the better of him. Goruk laughs. His laugh is contagious, and I find myself smiling along. I've heard rumours, I admit. His laughter fades a bit as he shakes his head. I can't say he isn't the root of them, but don't fuel rumours further. He's a good warrior, and his reputation is everything to him. So if you ever hear talk of Lanthic and his incident, tell them Goruk says it's untrue, and if anyone thinks otherwise, they can talk to me. And in those words, I find a respect for me in protecting a fellow orc, something noble in that I can't deny him. As we near the training centre, I secretly hope Goruk will suggest grabbing lunch together or something. Anyway, thanks for help during the interview, Goruk says, stopping outside the centre. It was productive. Likewise, I reply, feeling a warmth in my chest that hasn't been there before. I glance up at Goruk, his dark green skin glistening under the sun. He's always been a mystery to me, but now for the first time I feel like I really see him. He's not just an orc with a rough exterior. There's something more beneath the surface. Did you, have any other ideas about how we could approach Caspian? Goruk asks, nervously scratching the back of his head. Maybe we should discuss our strategy more often. Really? You think so? I ask, unable to hide my excitement. It feels like he's finally letting me in, even if it's just a crack in the door. Valor, Goruk says, looking down at me with those intense yellow eyes. You're smart and you've got good instincts. I have to admit that Hyzen was right, as he often is. I think we could do well working together on this. I can't help it. I let out a little laugh. The seriousness in his voice is almost too much to bear. But then again, maybe that's just how Goruk is when he's sincere. Thank you, I say, my heart swelling. I'd like that. Let's discuss our plans after training. Sounds good. He agrees, nodding. And then, without another word, he turns and begins walking away. As I watch him turn around to leave in the same direction we walked, I bite back a grin. He didn't want the conversation to end either. My heart races as I imagine what this new development might mean for our relationship. It's a strange feeling, one I haven't experienced before. But I don't have time to dwell on it, not with Caspian still looming over us. For now, I'll hold on to this small victory and focus on the task at hand.
Chapter 11. Goruk. As I head back to my tent that night, my mind places me in the interrogation room alone with Valor, just us. The atmosphere is heavy and intense. Her eyes burn with desire for me, for my shaft. I grab her and throw her onto the table, ripping her clothes off. The image of Vela's writhing body under my touch consumes me. My mind is flooded with fantasies of her nakedness pressed against mine on the interrogation table. Our skin slides together in a frenzy of lust and desire, her moans echoing against the rough wooden backdrop. I shake my head, trying to push these thoughts away. Vala is not just a means to an end. She is a strong and capable warrior. I cannot let myself be distracted by these carnal desires. I tell myself to be stronger. Get it together, Goruk, I chastise myself, shaking my head to dispel the inappropriate fantasy. I need something to clear my head, and I know just the thing. A cold drink at the ale tent. I hope there is no one there that I know, and I need time to think through this Caspian business and try to stop imagining doing Vala over the integration table. I wonder if she has such thoughts. There I go again. It creeps in like a thief stealing my integrity. Stop! I find myself shouting out. A few orcs passing by glance toward me, and I lower my head in embarrassment and hurry toward the ale tent. I arrive at the ale tent, which is always full. You'd think these orcs have other things to do with their time than drinking themselves into oblivion every night of the week. I scan the room, and I am thankful there is no one there that I know. I'm not in the mood for conversation. The dimly lit space hums with the sounds of laughter and fists pounding on tables. The air is thick with the scent of sweat, ale, and smoke from the crackling hearth. "Ailey!" I shout at the human barkeep over the orc noise and laughter. The human does what he is told and quickly brings me a mug of ale. I don't drink often. It can dumb an orc quickly, and I don't care for dumb. But tonight, I need my mind less alert, less imaginative. I find myself a seat. As I take a swig, my thoughts drift back to Vala. She's so different from the female orcs I've been with. Smaller, softer, delicate even. I wonder how it would feel to be with her, to explore those subtle differences between our races. Would she be as fierce as she looks in training? I ponder, feeling my pulse quicken at the thought. Or would she be soft? Submissive? Definitely need less imagination, I say under my breath, raising my mug before taking another long gulp of the strong ale. The drink helps, and soon I can focus on my other concerns. This Caspian, I will admit to myself and myself only, he's good. Very good. If I'm to get anywhere with this interrogation, I have to up my game. But what should I do? Think Goruk, think goddammit. Is he running from something? The small transport would undoubtedly point to a quick exit from somewhere with only a few elves he could trust. If he is, what could he be running from? Or is he running to something, to us? But why? He knows we'll rip him apart if he turns out to be conning us. I just don't get it. My gaze scans the room before landing on a boisterous group of orcs huddled together at a nearby table. Their raucous laughter draws my attention. "Ha, you should have seen her," one of them slurs, slamming his mug onto the table. "She was begging for more." "Pathetic human women," another chimes in, grinning maliciously. "They're only good for a quick fix. Then we toss them aside like garbage." The others laugh and nod in agreement, raising their mugs in a drunken toast. My nostrils flare as anger bubbles up inside me. Though I've heard this talk countless times before, it never bothered me until now. But Vala has changed something within me, and their words slice through me like a sharpened blade. Would they have spoken about her that way if she weren't part of a clan? I wonder, clenching my fists beneath the table. Imagining Vala being treated like nothing more than something to be used and discarded sends rage coursing through my veins. "Hey, you big fella!" one of the orcs calls out, noticing my brooding demeanor. "What's got you so sullen? Why don't you join us for a drink?" "We were just talking about this. He needs some warm, wet human core to put a smile back on his face," another orc adds, raising his mug in the air as they all cheer his comment. It makes my blood boil, and I can feel my tempter turn red. "Piss off!" I growl, feeling the heat of my fury burning in my chest. "I don't need your company." "Touchy, touchy," the first orc taunts, smirking as he takes a swig of his ale. "Didn't mean to ruffle your feathers, big fella." "Maybe he's lost his wood, and he's gone all droop-droop," another orc jeers, causing the others to burst into laughter. "Don't you worry, we'll give her what she needs," another shouts. "I am going to kill every last one of these bastards." "Want to share her with the boys," one of them calls out. I have to do everything in my power not to rip his head off. I stand up. "One more word. Try me." My stare cuts deep into each of them. "That's Goruk," I hear one of them whisper. "Only having a laugh. Easy there," one of them says, putting up his hands. As they turn their backs and mutter amongst themselves, my thoughts drift to Vala. I can't help but wonder what it must have been like for her growing up in an orc clan, surrounded by this kind of talk. How many times had she heard these brutes boast about their mistreatment of humans? And how many times had she felt the sting of their words, knowing she was different? Vala deserves better than this, I realize, my protective instinct surging forward with startling intensity. With that resolve, I rise from my seat and leave the ale tent, my thoughts clearer now than perhaps ever before. I enjoy the little buzz from the ale and the tension unleashed on those idiots who have given me clarity. Maybe it's time my view of humans changed. In a world of elves, demons, and liches.
What would you choose?
Power?
Or passion?
Would you stab the monster in the back?
Or take him to bed?
The immersive fantasy audiobook bundle has it all.
Go to worldsofprathika.com to get access.
Use code YouTube30 to get an additional 30% off.
Prathika's magic is eternal. Audio bundles will make it immersive. Chapter 12. Valor. Everything is laid out perfectly on my tent's table. Notes from what Caspian had told us before, and questions that I want to ask him today. As frustrating as that dark elf has been so far, I'm a little grateful this has taken longer than I predicted. It's giving me time to get to know Goruk, and he finally seems to be opening up to me as well. I gather up my papers, leaving the information about Caspian to the side on my table and taking today's questions with me. "Good morning, Caspian." I walk over to the table separating us. Caspian gives me a quarter of a smile, and it quickly drops when he sees Goruk following closely behind me. "Hello," Goruk says, more to me than to Caspian. I glance back and offer a happy smile. Turning back around to Caspian, Goruk settles himself behind me. I can hear the soft, deep inhales of his orc body as he takes the silent partner role again today. "So, Caspian, we left off yesterday on a good note, I think." I smile sweetly, though my eyes squint to him, trying to gauge his worry. Caspian looks between me and Goruk, lips pressed tightly together, possibly remembering our threats of castration. "You had mentioned you were from Prathika?" I continue, shifting a bit in my chair. Caspian nods again, his eyes dancing between us once more. "What kind of status do you have there?" I'm trying to sound casual, but my heart rate is giving away my curiosity. Realizing that there are different worlds out there is overwhelming, to say the least. I know a little of human history before the orcs came, and I know they destroyed our way of life. If these dark elves are coming from the same place, It's chilling to imagine what more destruction they could inflict. For a moment he doesn't speak, and Goruk shifts behind me on the floor. It depends. Caspian finally replies, slowly, as if he's debating how much to tell me. I have some valuable information that people would kill for. He looks pointedly at Goruk, then back to me before continuing. Back home, I'm considered wealthy enough for certain roles that give access to this type of knowledge and power. My heart skips a beat and I lean forward. And what kind of power is that exactly? Caspian gives me a smirk before leaning back in his chair. He looks away from us, staring at the stone wall as if he can see something far away. A chill runs down my spine as I realise he's stalling, taking his time to think of how much to tell us. He takes a deep breath before finally turning back around to look at us again. Magic, Caspian finally says, his voice low and almost a whisper. His eyes flicker between Caspian and Goruk before continuing. Though it's not like it used to be. Not here. Caspian's words hang in the air for a moment, and I can feel Goruk tense behind me as if readying himself for battle. For a moment, I pause before an idea strikes me. I look up at Caspian and speak with more conviction than before. So, you're saying there's no magic left where you're from? Caspian scoffs. Of course there's magic. So you've been there recently, Goruk says, voice even. Caspian freezes slightly. He's given something away. No. No. Goruk sounds disbelieving. You said there's less magic here than what you had in your homeland, I say, smoothing over Caspian's mistake. Goruk shoots me a look, but I ignore. I'm going somewhere with this. Is there a way to get it back? To recharge? He doesn't answer. I've seen elves use stones for magic. I press on. Gems. Are they from your homeland? Caspian's eyes glitter with disdain. You know nothing. My world, the creatures there, the gods, many have existed before time itself. The magic there is overwhelming, all-encompassing, more than you can possibly imagine. And you're searching for more. Goruk's eyes don't leave Caspian's face. You are, aren't you? That's why you had such a small guard. You're searching for more magic for yourself, and you don't want the other dark elves to access it. Am I right? I believe that I've found a way to restore magic, yes, Caspian snaps. Is that enough of a crumb for you to spare my life? As Caspian finishes his explanation, I lean back in my chair. Goruk, however, remains unconvinced and speaks up. So you're telling us this information, he says warily. But how do we know that you can be trusted? Caspian sighs before answering him, his eyes narrowing slightly. You don't, he says flatly. I'm keeping a lot to myself. You'll get more details when my demands are met. He pauses for a moment before continuing in a low voice. And I must remind you, I am not stuck here. I'm doing you a service by offering the advice that I have. Goruk's eyes flick to the elf's restraints. Clearly. I'm about to ask Caspian another question, but he holds up his hand and shakes his head. No more questions right now, he says sternly. Everything will be revealed once my demands have been met. Goruk snorts. Looks like it might rain tonight. Let the guards know if you're feeling chatty. We might move you to a drier cell. Goruk gives him a curt nod and stands up, ending the day's interrogation. I rise as well, following Goruk out of the room. As we walk away, I look back at Caspian's door one last time. Do you think he's telling the truth? I think we're getting closer. Goruk turns to me again and smiles. And I think it's been a long day. Would you like to get dinner together? We can talk more about tomorrow's strategy, he offers. We can't talk about this in the canteen, I hedge. His eyes are hot on mine, and I bite my lip self-consciously. We might be able to take dinner to go and eat in my tent. Of course. We walk in silence to the canteen, and I feel eyes on both of us as we take our food out of the large tent. Goruk was right about the rain. A light drizzle begins to fall as we make our way to my tent. I can feel Goruk's eyes on me, studying me closely. "What is it?" I ask, feeling a little self-conscious under his scrutiny. "You're excited about something," Goruk says, his voice low and gruff. "What is it that you know that I don't?" Admitting that I'm actually excited to have him in my tent is embarrassing. I'm just glad that we're making more progress with Caspian. Goruk nods. "We'll need to be careful," he says, his voice low and serious. "If there's any truth to what Caspian is saying, then this could be a game changer."
Chapter 13. Goruk. I watch as Vala starts to set up a small table for our dinner. Her nimble body practically dances around the tent. I watch her quietly, my eyes consumed by the way she gracefully puts everything together. She's definitely nowhere close to an orc woman. Her body moves effortlessly around the tent, lithe and graceful. As the aroma of the cooked meat fills my nostrils, I can't help but feel entranced by Vala. She's so different from any other woman I've ever met. It's not just her physical appearance, but the way she moves and speaks. It feels like she's from another world. "Are you just going to stand there and watch me plate everything, or are you going to help?" Vala asks, breaking me out of my thoughts. I shake my head, trying to clear my mind. "I'm sorry. I got lost in my thoughts. What can I do to help?" I walk over, our height difference never getting old as I look down to her. Smiling, she holds out a plate for me and lets me grab food for myself. I fill my plate, leaving enough for her to have a full meal too as we sit down across from each other. With the sun setting, the flickering of candles wave shadows over her face. We eat in silence for a few more minutes before she speaks again. "Should we talk about Caspian?" I nod. Pushing a piece of potato on her plate, she says, "I think today went really well. I'm glad Caspian has been more receptive to our questioning." I nod again, taking a swig of the water she poured. Vala was right. Caspian had been more cooperative than ever before, but I was still hesitant to trust him completely. "I know he seems as though he's opening up," I say cautiously, "but I don't think we should be too trusting of him. Dark elves have been known to be extremely manipulative." Vala pauses for a moment, letting out a deep sigh before continuing. "I know he has been vague at times, but I think he is true to his word, at least about magic and wanting to live. You caught him off guard twice. I'm not sure he could fake that." "I think you may be right," I reply thoughtfully, "but we can't let our guard down just yet." Vala nods in agreement, her expression serious now as she looks off into the night sky outside the tent flap. "What if we gauge his motives?" she suddenly suggests. I look at her, not sure what she means. "He said something interesting today, that he's not really stuck here. What if that's true?" I drag my attention from her full bottom lip, which she's licking free of sauce, and frown. "You really think he could escape if he wanted? Or is he just propping up his ego?" "I'm saying we should find out. Humans like me don't normally do well in orc camps," she says with an edge of determination in her voice. "And some of them have even been known to team up with the dark elves. He might believe me if I suggested helping him escape for some sort of favor." I nod slowly as I think it over. It is certainly a risk, but it could also pay off tremendously. If he tries to escape, we'll be ready to catch him, and we'll know everything he said is a lie. If he stays in his cell, we'll know he's choosing to be here for a reason. But does that make him more trustworthy, or less? As we finish up our meals, Vala and I continue to discuss the plan. I can see the passion in her eyes grow stronger and stronger as she speaks. She's excited for this. It's not often that humans show such courage in the face of danger. But I don't like her being involved in this plan at all, the more I consider it. Even if he is tied up, doing this plan could be putting Vala in danger if he happened to escape. I don't even like the idea of Vala being alone in the interrogation room with him. "I'm not sure it's worth the risk," I say finally. Vala shakes her head, looking disappointed but understanding. I understand your reservations, Goruk, and I respect them. She smiles softly as she rises from her seat. But this might be our only way of really testing his mettle. We won't actually let him escape. I reluctantly agree. Maybe. I let out a sigh and then accidentally slip up. I just don't want you going in there alone. Vala looks taken aback, her eyes widening as she glances away from me. What do you mean? She asks cautiously. I can see the hurt in her gaze, and it pains my heart to know that I've made her feel this way. Do you think I'm not capable of handling him? I can see her starting to get worked up. I walk over to her, hastily shaking my head. No, I hurriedly explain myself. I know you can handle yourself as well as any orc, but I've fought against his men, and I've lost good fighters to dark elves before. We can't underestimate him. Her expression softens, and I can tell from her eyes that she now understands the real meaning behind my words. She takes a step closer to me, her gaze never leaving mine as she reaches out and places her hand on my arm. I know you're just looking out for me, she says, her voice softening. But I can take care of myself, Goruk. I nod, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. I know Vala is strong and capable, but I can't help but worry about her safety. You can, I say, my voice barely above a whisper. But I still worry about you. Vala smiles at me, a gentle expression on her face. Thank you, Goruk, she says softly. I appreciate your concern. I nod, my heart swelling with admiration as I realize how close we are together. I can practically count the eyelashes on her face as she looks up at me, and I feel myself taking a step closer as she takes a step back. She takes a step forward, and the air between us thickens with anticipation. I lean down, but stop when I see her eyes begin to clear. She looks almost panicked. I freeze. Suddenly, Vala takes a step away from me and glances over her shoulder at the tent flap. We should get back to our duties, she says, her voice suddenly businesslike. We have a lot of work to do. I nod, feeling a sense of disappointment wash over me as I realize the moment has passed. But I know Vala is right. There's still much to be done before we can let ourselves get distracted by anything else. Chapter 14. Goruk. Of course, I say. My body thrums with desire, but I ignore it. Good night. I pass by her, breathing in the scent of sun and water that lingers on her skin. Her gaze shifts away for a second, then back to me. I battle the temptation to move closer yet again, to take a chance at being rebuffed by attempting to kiss her one more time. But she already drew back from me earlier. And she was right to draw away no matter what my member might think of the matter. I don't do humans, and I certainly don't do humans I'm working with. And I definitely don't do humans I'm working with while interrogating a prisoner during a war. From inside her tent, Vala's eyes slowly linger on me, filled with an emotion I can't quite make out. Good night, Goruk, she says eventually, her voice heavy with something that sounds like regret. I watch as she turns away and begins to put the dishes from dinner away. Unbidden, a thought crosses my mind of what I heard in the ale tent. Vala doesn't trust me. A pang of something sharp and cold fills me at the thought, and I desperately want it not to be true. For some reason, I want Vala to trust me. Our eyes meet once more before I nod farewell and leave her tent. I trudge through the camp, the grass crunching underneath my feet. My hands hang at my sides, empty. The sky is tinted with purple pastels, and the air is cool, but not cold. I can't help but imagine what it would be like to have her by my side. My tent is only a few minutes' walk away, and yet it feels so much farther without her presence. Stepping inside, I peel off the shirt from my body, and am struck by the breath-catching chill of the air. It is like stepping into a crypt, once full of life and now left to mold away in darkness. The tent is small, only about 8 feet long by 5 feet wide. My eyes roam around the lone piece of furniture in the room, a small bed that stands against one wall. It looks comfortable enough, A rope mat cradles a scattered stack of furs at its foot. The memory of our dinner together keeps replaying in my mind. Not what we said, but how she looked as we spoke. I remember the way her eyes had softened when she gazed at me. The way she kept biting her bottom lip, kept gazing at my chest. Visions of what her touch would feel like creep into my mind, awakening something deep within me that hasn't been stirred for a long time. I've spent so much time pushing them away, and I'm weak. For once, I let myself imagine her in full. My thoughts are consumed with Vala and the curves of her body that I can't seem to forget. No matter what she's wearing, my mind is drawn to her. I picture her movements as she owns her fighting skills, and it stirs an intense desire within me. Every time I think of her body moving beneath me, a surge of burning passion runs through me like wildfire. My skin flushes warm. In my mind, I picture her doe-like eyes and soft smile, light pink lips, and her slender neck bowed slightly forward. Hey readers, it looks like we've reached a part of the story that's just too hot for YouTube. But don't worry, you can unlock the uncut steamy details over at worldsofprotheca.com. Use code YouTube30 for a special discount on the thrilling conclusion. Now back to the adventure.
Chapter 15. Valor. I lie in bed, my mind occupied with thoughts of Goruk. There are so many things about him that drive me mad. His arrogance, his disregard for proper etiquette, his incessant need to always be right. But it's like they've all slid from my mind. I almost kissed him. I mutter to myself. It seems unbelievable, but in the moment it was all I could do not to kiss him. Like there was some sort of private gravity pulling me towards him that I've been resisting this entire time. Maybe there has been. I can't deny, at least now when I'm alone in bed, that I want him, that I've wanted him. I shift on the bed, restless. It's as though my night clothes are too tight on my skin, as thought the fire outside burns too hot, even though I know there's nothing but embers left this late, even though the air is anything but cold. I'm just horny, I tell myself. It's been a while since I've been with anyone else, and I've been too focused on this interrogation. A little self-soothing session will clear my mind. Let's get these two together, shall we? Unfortunately, the delightful details can only be found at worldsofprotheca.com. Use code YouTube30 for a fantastic deal on all the goods. Now back to our story. Afterwards, I stare at the ceiling of my tent in shock. I can't deny that I want him. Not anymore. But what am I going to do about it? Nothing, I tell myself. But it feels like a lie. If someone had told me a month ago that I would be running for my life instead of sitting in the stuffy classroom of the bordello, preparing to be sold off to indoor, I would have laughed.
The forest is not your safe space, little one.
But there's no avoiding my fate.
It's you. You're the one.
I've spent my entire life training to be the perfect bride for the top-bidding dark elf. So much can change in so little time.
You understand why you're being punished, right, child?
Your blood. It sings to me.
Please, let me out of here.
You need to learn your place.
But what are you? Where are you taking me?
Run!
I'm a bringer of death.
No, you're not dying. I won't let you.
You won't be able to get out.
Let me go, please.
Sadie, I will make you mine. Chapter 16. Goruk. Vala stands a few feet away from the prison, her gaze fixed on the dark elf within. When she sees me approaching, she waves me over. As I approach, dressed in full armor, I can't help but notice how her eyes trail down my body before she speaks. Are you ready for this? I nod, but the truth is that I'm all out of sorts. Normally, I'd love nothing more than an excuse to thrash a dark elf. Now, there's an unfamiliar, uneasy sensation in my stomach. One that few orcs will ever admit to. Nerves. Not for me, but for her. I can't stand it. How does anyone manage this? It's exhausting, caring for someone. I freeze. Do I care for her? I can't possibly. I haven't even slept with her yet. The only relationship we have is a professional one, where her eyes linger on my chest like they're doing right now, and I pretend not to want to bend her over those bushes behind us. And I certainly don't love making her smile or provoking a laugh from her usually stern lips. I didn't walk an extra 10 minutes just to stay in her company the other day. This is work. Professional. If he looks as though he's about to move his hands, run. My hand runs along the hilt of my axe. Their magic is fast. A flick of their fingers, and... I've seen their magic, Vala murmurs. If she has any nerves at all, they don't show. Her eyes shine with excitement instead. You caught him once, at full power. He's definitely weaker now that he's been captive here. I'm sure you can catch him again. Her trust in me makes me smile, and I catch myself staring at her for far too long. Vala takes a step towards the prison. All right. I'll be back in a few minutes. Hopefully this works. I nod and situate myself behind the bushes nearby. Vala approaches the prison, her steps silent and fluid. As she slips inside, I can hear their muffled conversation. It's not clear, but a few words slip into the outside night. As I wait for Vala to return, my mind races with thoughts of what could be happening inside the tent. Will she be able to get Caspian to talk? Will he try to use his magic against her? I try to shake off the unease settling in my stomach. I can stop Caspian, surely. But can I fight him if he's got Vala as a hostage? Minutes pass before Vala emerges from the tent, her steps light and swift. She approaches me with a grin on her face. I told him his best chance of survival was to listen to me, she says. Her breath tickles my neck as she leans close. That the orcs won't give him a fair chance. That I hate all of you. That I want the dark elves to win. Her grin stretches wide. That if he tells me what he's searching for, I might be able to help him find it. I can see the glint of triumph in Vala's eyes as she speaks. He seemed even more surprised when I untied him, and then just left the door unlocked. Vala explains. As far as he's concerned, I used my wiles and invited the guards to share my tent for the night. Jealousy, completely unwarranted, surges through me. The guards are scattered across the camp here, waiting for him to make his escape. Very creative. She shrugs. I know what he thinks of humans. Might as well use it to our advantage. As we wait, I find myself lost in my thoughts. I remember the orcs in the ale tent, and all of Caspian's comments on Vala and other humans. He's wrong, I say. I've been unfair to you. Vala blinks at me, then smiles. Is this seriously an apology? From Goruk himself? I must be dreaming. See if I finish it then, I scoff, but I can't help a twitch of a smile. Vala doesn't press it. She's watching the prison, not looking at me at all when she says, I was wrong about you too, you know. I ought to welcome her apology, but the tension in my body only continues to grow. Caspian could still pose a threat, especially if he decides to use his magic against us. Vala must sense my unease because she places a hand on my shoulder and gives it a reassuring squeeze. Her warmth seeps into my skin and I find myself leaning back slightly, savoring the feeling of her body against mine. Guard! Vala frowns. It's Caspian. Guard! He shouts again. Vala and I exchange worried glances, unsure of what's happening. Is he attempting some sort of ploy? The guards emerge, and I follow them inside. If he suspects Vala set him up, he might be trying to consolidate the guards in one room before he attacks. But to my surprise, instead of trying to escape, Caspian remains seated in his cell. The door blew open, I think, he says. He looks at me, a knowing glint in his eyes. And these restraints seem to have fallen off. He shows the guards his wrists, blinking innocently. Odd, isn't it? Very, I say. The guards look at me, baffled. I'd prepared them for a fight. Well, I say, lock him back in. The guards fix his restraints and lock the cell door. As they leave to guard the front, I stay behind, staring at the dark elf. What are you playing at? I demand. Caspian merely smiles. I told you I'm here willingly. I leave, stomping outside to meet with Vala. What the hell? Vala mutters under her breath, and I feel the exact same way. I glance around the camp. This isn't a discussion I want to have in public. Come on. As we settle down inside Vala's tent, Vala and I exchange puzzled looks. It's clear that something doesn't add up. Why would Caspian, an elusive dark elf, choose to remain in his cell when given the chance to escape? Vala breaks the silence, her voice quiet but certain. He was being truthful about being here by choice. I huff slightly, annoyed by the fact that she's right. I wish he was a traitor. Then I could have killed him and been over with it. But now, we have to deal with the fact that the dark elf is still in our midst. Maybe he's trying to gain our trust so he can use us for his own purposes, I suggest, trying to come up with an explanation for Caspian's strange behavior. I sigh and run a hand through my hair. Let's keep an eye on him, I say finally. We can't fully trust him just yet. No, but we can trust that for whatever reason he doesn't want to leave. If we can figure out why, we'll have something to go on. I nod, considering her words. It's possible, but there's something about Caspian that doesn't sit right with me. Despite his willingness to stay in his cell, I can't shake the feeling that he's up to something. Vala seems to sense my unease and reaches out to place a hand on my arm, offering me comfort. We'll figure it out, she says softly. We sit in silence for a few moments longer before Vala speaks again. We should get some rest. We have a long day ahead of us tomorrow. I nod once more, and I bid her goodnight, walking back to my tent. My mind is consumed with thoughts of Caspian and what he might be plotting. I can't shake the feeling that we're being played, and it's only a matter of time before everything comes crashing down around us. Even as I lay down to sleep, my mind is racing with possibilities. I replay the events of the night, trying to find something that could give us a clue as to Caspian's intentions. But as I toss and turn, I realize that I won't find any answers tonight. I need to rest and come at this with a clear head in the morning. As I finally drift off into a fitful sleep, I can't help but feel the weight of the impending danger that Caspian brings. I know that we need to be cautious and vigilant, but the thought of Vala being in harm's way makes my chest tight with unfamiliar fear.
Chapter 17. Valor. At first light I wake, quickly get ready for the day, and leave for Goruk's tent. I'm still not a morning person, but I could hardly sleep last night after Caspian's refused escape. Goruk, are you ready? In a minute. He grunts. Come in. I peel back the flap and walk inside to catch him washing his face in the basin. A drip of water rolls down his chin to his bare chest, and I watch it, mesmerized, until he tugs on a shirt. I meet his eyes and he greets me with a nod. So what first? Interrogation or breakfast? I playfully remark. Food can wait. We need to go see Caspian first, he replied. Very well, let's not keep him waiting. The two of us make way to the holding cells where Caspian is held. He lay on the ground of his cell. He looks as if he hadn't slept at all last night, but he doesn't seem to be tired either. I wonder if perhaps the elves have some magical way to avoid the need for sleep. But the thoughts of such a thing quickly dash from my mind as Caspian spoke. Well, good morning, you two, Caspian greets. A cheeky, almost wry smile lies upon his visage. So, you really decided to stay? I ask, my eyes scanning his person for anything suspicious. Of course I did. He speaks as if saying a well-known fact. How could I abandon such winsome hospitality? You wanted to be captured, Goruk chimes in, having been silent until now. Perhaps he was inspecting him too. I don't look to see. I have to stay focused. Caspian gets up from the ground, dusting himself off and approaching the bars to get closer to us. I knew you were a smart one. Caspian's words are like knives trying to prod Goruk, but as I glance at him, he doesn't seem to falter at all. Caspian's smile only widens as he replies, I can assure you both that my intentions are genuine. I want to believe him, but there's still a lingering doubt in my mind. How could someone like Caspian so easily turn against his own kin? We'll see, Goruk muses. The corners of Caspian's lips drop, and the look in his eyes becomes intense. You're correct. I set the stage for my own capture. Sounds to me like a little dark elf is trying to make himself feel better about being captured by an orc, Goruk taunts. Did you really think you stumbled across our caravan on your own? I led my men into your territory, hoping to find one of your war parties, though I didn't expect us to be attacked by a single orc. Before the two start having a member measuring contest that might get out of hand, I speak up. So then why? Why would you want to be captured? I ask, half out of necessity and half curiosity. Caspian stands up taller, his head tilts back, and the air around him almost seems to exude superiority. Because this war of ours needs to end, and I know exactly how to do just that without any unnecessary loss of life on either side, Caspian says. Goruk and I exchange a look of disbelief at the elf's words. But why? Why would you betray your own kind? I step closer to the cell. Caspian sighs heavily, looking away from us for a moment. When he looks back, his face is filled with sadness and determination. My family has gone too far, he answers solemnly. They have forgotten the true meaning of this war, and instead have allowed themselves to get carried away with their own egos and desires for power. They will not stop until there's nothing left, and I cannot let that happen. So, I chose to do something about it. What exactly can you offer us? Goruk asks, still not fully convinced of Caspian's intentions. Obviously, I have knowledge of their strategies and tactics, Caspian replies confidently. Not only that, but as an officer, I have many connections. I can't help but feel slightly impressed by his words. Despite everything that has happened between us and the elves, Caspian seems genuine in his desire to help. And you're only offering that knowledge now? Caspian looks away. I have been on the fence, as you say. I wanted to know that I would give the knowledge to someone who wouldn't squander it. Goruk raises an eyebrow at this information while I can't hide my surprise. Knowing the enemy's plans and having inside information on high-ranking members of the Dark Elf military could greatly benefit our cause. How do we know we can trust you? Goruk presses on. You'll just have to take my word for it, Caspian says with a shrug. But if it helps ease your mind, think of it this way. My betrayal to my own kind is enough proof of my intentions. I am willing to risk my own life to end this war. Goruk takes a moment to rub his chin before finally nodding. Fine, we'll hear you out. But know this, if we find out you're playing us, I won't hesitate to end you. Caspian's smile falters slightly for only half a second before he replies. Understood. I have no intention of betraying you, so it should never come to that. I'm sure your kin believe that, Goruk jeers. In my defence, I never explicitly told them I wouldn't, Caspian retorts. What a comfort to their corpses. A necessary one, to see that there shall be no more. And what's stopping you from seeing us as just another necessary... Enough, I snap. The pair take their gazes off each other and turn their eyes to me. You can both bicker like children later. The two give each other one last glare, then promptly move away from each other. Caspian moves to the far end of his cell, and Goruk stands behind me. You said you had a way to end this without any more bloodshed. How? I didn't say that it was possible without bloodshed. I said that there was a way without any more unnecessary loss of life. To actually put an end to this war will most certainly require some unfortunate deaths, Caspian says blithely. That didn't answer my question, I say. His lips curl into a smirk, as if impressed by my candour. There are a pair of stones. Dawn stones, they're called. They're the key to ending this war once and for all. Stones. I remember what he said about magic, about searching for a way to recharge it. What can you tell us about them? I ask again, somehow pulled in by his words. Can you assure me of my safety? Yes, Goruk snaps. I will tell you everything. He trails off. I can't hide the look of eagerness on my face. After breakfast, if you would be so kind as to bring me a meal, I will reveal it to you both after I've eaten. Goruk made a gruff sound, almost growling at the audacity of the elf before us. You do feed your cooperative prisoners, don't you? The orcs are known for their hospitality after all. Goruk and I both are already visibly reaching our limit with dealing with Caspian this morning. My eyes meet Goruk's, and we both silently agree. Fine, I respond. Someone will bring you something to eat. When you're finished, we'll be back, and you'll tell us everything you know then. Absolutely, he says softly. Goruk and I take our leave and make our way back into the main part of camp. Hopefully, whatever Caspian has planned will actually be of some use, or this will have been for nothing.
Chapter 18. Goruk. We enter the cell to find Caspian singing again. In the woods around the grove, there's a girl who's lost in snow, and when spring reaches down, there's a flower braided in a crown. Caspian grins at us as we enter, and I resist the urge to punch his smug face. We join in, but we don't know the words, I tell him. Neither do I. I just make them up as I go along, Caspian says. Beneath his good humor, I can see that his eyes are red. His face is tired. Are you okay to talk? Vala asks him softly. I promised to tell you everything, didn't I? His voice is sarcastic and cutting, and I wonder if he's more upset with us or with himself. We appreciate that, Caspian, Vala tells him. I need to keep things moving. We are so close to knowing everything that could change the course of this goddamn war. The stones, Caspian! Tell us about the stones, I urge him. All right, Caspian says finally, staring straight ahead. I found the Dawnstone by accident. I'll not lie. I was hunting this woman for sport. I'd no designs on her past catching, a little light whipping and sending her back with a red ass to her loved ones. Charming, Vala says, but I grab her arm to silence her emotion. We are too close now to let such things get in the way. I try my best, Caspian smiles, but that was the old me. The new me prefers consent. It has been quite enlightening to find out that some women, if you treat them well, quite enjoy a good spanking, Caspian says, raising his left eyebrow and looks at Vala. Vala pretends he didn't say anything, looking bored. I'm going to kill him before he tells us anything, and Hyzen will have my head. Stay on track, Caspian, I say through my teeth. This girl, I think her name was Trella, or was it Drella? I can't quite remember. I thought she had taken herself into a cave, so I naturally followed her, Caspian says, his mind drifting away from us back to that moment. I've always enjoyed blondes. It was cold, but I liked that. I remember the chills, but something about that place drew me ever further in. Go on, Vala urges softly. Caspian's voice takes on a haunted tone. The stone was embedded in the cave wall, pulsing with an eerie light. I knew immediately it wasn't ordinary. It was like the very first dawn. Man, I murmur, rubbing my chin. I don't know much about magic, but this is sounding pretty freaking magical. For sure, Caspian continues, his hands trembling slightly. When I touched it, something incredible happened. The stone came loose, as if I intended to receive it. I felt a surge of energy run through my body. In that moment, I could see forever. Everything. The past. The present. The future. Caspian slumps in his seat. Vala rushes to him, but he immediately sits back up again. Are you okay? Vala asks him. Imagine suddenly knowing that everything you thought was right, everything you fought for and believed in wholeheartedly, was wrong. Can you imagine that for just 1 second? Caspian looks at Vala. She retreats a step. No, Vala replies. It was so powerful, the visions, the pleasure, the truth. I never wanted it to end, Caspian confesses. What happened? I push him. Never trust a dark elf, Caspian says, gently stroking his heart. Who betrayed you? Vala asks him. Caspian breathes several times, rubs his chin and says, I did. How? I ask. By telling the truth, I could see their lies, their murderous and treacherous ways. I thought the stone would protect me, but I was wrong. The stone only protects those who possess it, Caspian confesses further. I gave it to my parents so that they could see the truth as well, but they didn't care. My family was furious, Caspian continues, his voice strained. They accused me of shaming the family, their elfish ways. They kept the stone, and I was punished. I'm sorry about that, Vala tells him. I don't require pity because once you have seen, pity does not exist. Only cruelty, which I want no further part of. Caspian slumps. This is not easy for me, I'll have you know. What do you want, Caspian? I ask him. To help, Caspian says, shaking himself out of his reverie. We must find the other stone before it's too late. The other stone? Goruk asks. Too late for what? Vala probes him. Caspian doesn't answer immediately, and a shiver runs down my spine as I watch a fire dance in his eyes. To stop the Dark Elves from overrunning Earth, Caspian says, his voice heavy with dread. The only way to prevent that is to open the portal to Prathika and destroy my stone so they can't use it. Portal? Prathika? Is this story time with the elders? Prathika? Vala questions, her brow furrowing. From folklore? Next you'll be telling me the Dark Elves have a contingent of stone people at their command. I shake my head. Vampires too, right? Maybe some snake people. Demons. I slither my hand in the air. Give me something I can go to Heisen with. Something real. Trust me, it's real, Caspian replies, staring into the fire. Ask old Malik. He'll tell you the truth. But opening the portal won't be easy. It's a suicide mission. Even if we manage to open it, how do we know destroying the stone will save us and not doom us all? Vala interjects. Unfortunately, there are no guarantees, Caspian admits. Destroying the stone might seal the portal forever, or unleash an even greater disaster upon us. But it's our only hope. Sounds like a decision not for us, I mutter, feeling a cold sweat break out on my brow. I want to play it all off as the fantasy of a deranged elf, but something in his eyes makes me reconsider. I've heard old Malik talk about the world before. I've heard tales of portals, of desperation, fading magic. What if it's all true? Whoever goes through probably won't come back, Caspian warns. But it's not just about saving Earth. We need to save the Dark Elves too. If they come here, they'll lose their magic. Earth isn't a planet favored by the gods for my people. They have to be prevented from coming. We're not meant to be here. We sit silently, the weight of Caspian's words settling heavily on our shoulders. In my mind, I can already see the countless lives that hang in the balance. It's a decision that could determine the fate of both worlds, and yet, the choice seems clear. The risk is great, but the alternative is unthinkable. All right, I say, my voice steady despite the fear gnawing at my insides. We must do what needs to be done. Agreed, Vala adds. Her voice has a strength to it that I understand. Then we must prepare, Caspian says. But as I stand there with this information in my head, a nagging thought begins to plague me. Caspian's warning echoes in my mind. This is a suicide mission. Wait, I say suddenly, halting our preparations. Caspian, you mentioned that whoever goes through the portal probably won't return. What if destroying the portal doesn't really save us? What if it kills us all? The room falls silent, and I can feel the weight of Vela's gaze upon me. An interesting question, Goruk, Caspian says slowly, his eyes searching mine for any hint of doubt or fear. The truth is, we cannot be certain. The power within the Dawnstones is immense, and tampering with such forces could have unforeseen consequences. Then why risk it? Vala asks, her voice betraying a tremor of uncertainty. Why put our lives on the line for something so uncertain? Because, Caspian replies, his voice firm and unwavering, if we do nothing, the Dark Elves will overrun Earth, and both worlds will suffer. That much is certain. We may not know what will happen when we destroy the stone, but we must try. It's the only way forward. I take a deep breath. He's right. We can't let fear paralyze us into inaction. Okay, I say once more. Leave this with us. Thank you, Caspian, Vala adds. I wouldn't thank me just yet, Caspian says, putting his head in his hands.
Chapter 19. Valor. The fresh air is welcome as we step outside the holding cells. Our heads fill with all the information Caspian has just fed us, and for a moment, we stand trying to process it all. I look at Goruk, and he looks at me. I don't think either of us was fully prepared for what Caspian told us. If the myths from our childhood are actually true, we've done it. We've actually done it. The truth about the Dawnstones has been gently gleaned from the Caspian, and we could never have done that if we hadn't played to the other's strengths. Much like a battlefield, victory comes from teamwork. A warrior never wins a war alone. Valor, we did it, Goruk says, his voice a mixture of awe and disbelief. His eyes, usually so fierce and focused, seem almost watery in the moonlight. We did, I reply, but now... I know, he says. Now comes the part I don't believe any of us are prepared for. He nods solemnly, and for a moment, we both allow ourselves to bask in the enormity of our accomplishment. Imagine it, Vala, Goruk says, his voice calm and full of hope. A world without the constant threat of the Dark Elves. A world where people don't have to live in fear. Peace, I whisper, the word feeling foreign on my lips. A peace that we may help bring about. Goruk's smile is tentative but genuine. It's still a long way off, but we've taken the first step. And who knows? Maybe one day we'll be able to look back and say we were part of something good, that we helped change the world. Wouldn't that be something? I muse, my thoughts drifting to a future where our names are etched into history books, where children grow up hearing tales of our bravery and daring. More than something, Goruk agrees, his eyes far away. It would be everything. I nod, allowing myself a rare moment of vulnerability. I'd like that, Goruk. I'd like that very much. Through all this, Vala, I must admit, you have been amazing. I never thought, Goruk pauses. Well, let's just say I never thought and leave it at that. I know what you're trying to say, and I feel the same. We don't need to say it, we both know it. I watch as he lowers his head briefly, as if to hide something from me. Cute move, I think. Then he raises his head and looks at me. Such a shame it's too late to celebrate, he says, the corners of his mouth turning down ever so slightly. There's a hidden disappointment in his voice that I can't help but notice, a spark of vulnerability that I enjoy. A drink would have been nice, yes, I reply, my thoughts racing. Goruk nods, his eyes narrowing with renewed determination. We need rest, but we'll need to inform Hyzen first thing in the morning. Agreed. I wrap my arms around myself, trying to ward off the chill that has settled in my bones. This knowledge is our greatest weapon now. With it, we might finally have a chance to turn the tide of this war. Goruk's jaw clenches, and I can see the fire burning behind his eyes. Hyzen and Old Malik will know the best course forward. From them, we take their lead, Goruk says. We will, I murmur, the weight of our responsibility bearing upon me. Whatever it takes. He looks at me then, his gaze steady and unwavering. You're right, Valor. We've got this. I nod, and for a moment we stand in silence, united in our resolve. Then something catches my eye from above. Hey, look! I point upward. Quick, I tell Goruk. Goruk looks upward, and we watch as a shooting star cuts across the night sky. A beautiful gold tail follows it, throwing sparks out into the sky. Like a dragon, Goruk says. We follow it until its fire suddenly goes out, leaving only the black, faceless sky. It burned so brightly, I say, saddened by its disappearance. It left its mark, Goruk says to me, his voice reflective yet hopeful. We both seem to ebb and flow, our thoughts jumbled yet clear on this summer evening. As I stand with Goruk, I understand the paradox that has come to be us, and how that is reflected in the world we have come to inhabit. I wonder when our tomorrow comes, will we have burned as bright? As Goruk and I walk through the camp, the dying embers of fires casting a warm glow on our faces, I can't shake the feeling that we've accomplished something monumental. Sure, we still have a long way to go, but tonight's victory feels worth celebrating, even if just a little. Goruk! The deep voice of an orc, of course, ruins the moment. I watch as Teruik walks toward us, unsteady on his feet, drunk as usual. Teruik, Goruk says. How are you, my friend? Teruik inhales and doesn't exhale for a second. Then he does, all at once, with the words, I'm excellent. Teruik turns and looks at me, sniffs, and then looks back to Goruk with a huge smile on his face. You, sir, are the best orcs I have ever met. Then Teruik turns to me. You, let me tell you, this is the best orc I have ever met. You might be onto something there, Teruik, I say, nudging him. I can feel Goruk's embarrassment without even looking at him. Teruik sways a little too much and almost topples over. Goruk, with one hand, steadies him. And you too, Teruik, Goruk tells him. Teruik, confused, looks at Goruk, trying to focus on his face. Sorry? I said they are looking for you at the ale tent. Goruk smiles. Yes, right, I'll be on my way. Teruik turns, stumbles a few steps, and turns back to us. You are a good orc, Goruk, the best. Then he continues on his drunken way. We watch as he goes, and both chuckle to ourselves. Hey, I say, nudging Goruk gently with my elbow. Who says it's too late to celebrate? We could always toast our success back at my tent. Goruk looks at me, clearly surprised by the suggestion. His face flushes slightly, which is unusual for him. He's not one to get flustered easily. Sure, he stammers awkwardly. Yeah, that sounds nice. I can't help but grin at his uncharacteristic reaction. It's endearing seeing this side of him. The hard-as-nails warrior is suddenly bashful at the idea of sharing a private celebration. Great, I respond, trying not to let my amusement show too much. It's settled then, just a small toast to recognise what we've achieved tonight. We walk in companionable silence as we navigate the labyrinth of tents and makeshift shelters that make up our camp. Soldiers' voices murmur softly around us, some exchanging stories of battle and survival, while others whisper tender words to their loved ones. In these quiet moments, it's easy to forget the war raging outside our borders, the ever-present danger lurking in the shadows.
Chapter 20. Goruk. I stand just inside the entrance to her tent, which is situated at the east end of the row. I've been inside before, but never taken a moment to closely examine her setup. She's outfitted it much like a traveling merchant would, with compartments for storing goods and an impressive array of books along one wall. In another corner are blankets in a soft, comfortable heap over some worn crates. Against another wall, a low desk holds an oil lamp that casts its warm light across the pages of loose papers and half-empty inkwells, each spilling over with hastily written notes. In the opposite corner, A small round table sits between two cozy chairs. The checked tablecloth is undone and sprawled over the table in chairs like river water after a big rain, calm and flat with broad eddies of color. A bowl of ripe fruit adorns the center, filling the room with the sweet scent of apples. It's a warm and inviting space, beckoning me to come sit and enjoy a snack while admiring the scavenged treasures around me. Vala's bed is an oasis amid the crowded tent, a simple straw mattress adorned with furs. And her. As she lays down on the plush mattress, the gentle breeze from outside rustles the curtains around her. My eyes drift upwards to the pinnacle of Vala's tent, where she is sewn in delicate stars that twinkle above us. Their gentle glow is amplified by the faint light seeping in from outside, creating a cozy illusion of a night sky just inches above our heads. As I take in the ambience, my gaze falls upon various trinkets and treasures hanging from hooks around her bed. Each one holds a unique story or memory from Vala's travels, adding a touch of personal magic to our temporary dwelling. Vala disappears behind a room divider to change, her voice trailing behind her. "Pour us some drinks," she calls out. I try not to notice her used clothes falling to the tent floor or the sound of swishing cloth. This is just a toast, I lie to myself. Nothing more. A well-deserved celebration. "What do you want?" I ask, standing up and crossing the room. "There should be some wine around here somewhere," Valor replies with a sly smile in her voice. "I stole it off some elves. Seems a fitting time to enjoy it." I reach for a beautifully carved wooden chest and lift the lid, revealing a pair of crystal glasses nestled inside. "Did you steal a way to open it?" I say as I carefully take one out, closing the lid with a gentle thud using my heel. I grab the bottle of wine from the nearby table, feeling its cool glass against my skin. "Should be an opener in there too." "There is. You thought of everything. Orcs have wine, of course. We aren't uncivilized, but wine is usually produced in the south, and production has taken a hit with the wars. Clumsily, I work the wine opener until the cork pops. The rich aroma of red wine fills my nostrils as I pour it into the glass before taking a satisfying sip. Vala glides back into the room like a vision. The deep blue dress she wears is decorated with sparkling silver and gold thread, which shimmers and bounces off of her luminous skin. Her hair is pulled back in a neat updo, but the ends cascade down over her delicate collarbones. When she turns to look at me, I'm struck by how much her beauty has grown since we first met. It's like seeing her again for the very first time. She steps into the dancing light from her oil lamps, and I see that her dress is transparent. My shaft leaps to attention. She blushes. I might have taken a dress as well. I know it's ridiculous, but it's not like there's many occasions to wear it. "It doesn't look ridiculous at all," I say, mouth dry. As she sachets towards the table, a lock of her soft chestnut hair cascades across her face, framing her delicate features. My heart thunders. She settles gracefully into the chair, her long dress brushing against the floor with each step, almost as if it had a life of its own. Her enchanting eyes meet mine. "A toast?" she says, extending her hand with a full glass of rich red wine.
Chapter 21. Valor. I feel his eyes burning into me as I walk into the room wearing the blue nightgown. The fabric is almost sheer and clings to my curves in all the right places. His jaw clenches and a smouldering look of desire flits across his face as he takes it all in. He tries to remain composed, but I can tell that my outfit is stirring something within him by the way his gaze lingers. As I sit across from him, I slowly swirl my wine glass, never breaking eye contact. I smile mischievously and hold his gaze as if daring him to cross some invisible line between us. I lean forward, and the thin straps of my gown slip off my shoulders, revealing more of my porcelain skin. His wide eyes follow me as I fill his glass with ruby liquid, and when my fingers graze his as I hand him the glass, he visibly shivers. His gaze now lingers on me with a hungry intensity. I tilt my head, a sly smile playing on my lips. "Go ahead," I whisper, almost daringly. His hand trembles slightly as he leans in closer to me. His face is mere inches away from mine. He wants this moment so badly that I can feel it radiating from him. We hold our breath as his gaze travels over my face, searching for permission. Understanding the silent plea, I offer him one final nod before our lips meet. We've had to censor this section because it's a bit too spicy for YouTube. Want to hear the full unfiltered story? Head over to worldsofprotheka.com and use code YouTube30 to save on the complete pulse-pounding experience. Let's get back to the story.
There comes a time when you must sacrifice everything for something bigger than yourself.
My job was to kidnap her, not fall in love with her.
What if Julius had seen me use magic? He must never know.
What's happening to me? What's happening to my magic?
He would never understand. He'd see me as a liability, a risk too great to keep close.
When everything begins to fall apart, and the only remedy is to sacrifice your heart.
No, I can't let him find out.
I propose we take Dukan out of the picture, permanently.
Please, don't do this.
You will never escape me.
I can try.
You will fail.
And that time is now.
Savannah, run! Chapter 22. Goruk. The morning greets us with a bright light streaming through Vala's closed tent flaps. The momentary bliss fades quickly as I realize I'm not in my own bed, and draped over my right arm is my work partner. Vala. I hold my breath, trying not to disturb her peaceful slumber. Her long lashes cast shadows on her cheeks as the morning light dances around the tent. I can't help but admire how beautiful she looks, even in her disheveled state. I carefully remove my arm from under her head and sit up, stretching my sore muscles. The events of last night come rushing back to me, and I can't help but feel a sense of guilt wash over me. I let out a heavy sigh and run a hand through my messy hair. I need to talk to her, to apologize for my actions and set things right between us. But I also don't want to wake her up just yet. She looks so peaceful and calm when she's sleeping. I feel a doubt start to creep in. Did I go too far? I would never mix up work and pleasure, yet Vala sleeping next to me is proof that I did just that. A deep mix-up. The thought of last night gradually comes back to me. I can still feel her body pressed against mine, her soft curves falling perfectly into my rough frame. That familiar feeling washes over me again, and I almost forget she's human. Almost. The guilt consumes me suddenly, and I know that I shouldn't have done it. The Dawnstones can turn the tide of this war. I ought to have woken Hyzen immediately. Instead, I'm trying to pry myself out of a human's bed. I quickly remove myself from Vala's side and slip out of the tent as silently as possible. Taking a deep breath, I decide to steel my resolve against any further romantic entanglements with her, until at least after this job is done. No more distractions or improper behavior, just professionalism from now on. But even as these thoughts enter my mind, I can't help but feel a strange longing well up inside me. I don't want to leave her. This is getting ridiculous. Not wanting to leave her is exactly why I need to leave now. Why I never should have done this to begin with. We're at war. I don't have time for soft emotions or distractions. My heart aches as I take a look back towards the tent one more time, but I force myself to get moving. As I keep walking, I'm welcomed by the bustling camp around me. The sun is up, and orcs are already starting their day. Fires are lit up in each corner of the campsite, wood crackling away as they prepare their breakfast. Some orcs are already done eating, and now they begin to practice with their weapons while some even make small talk with others nearby. I can feel my heart heavy with emotion, but also with admiration towards my people who carry on despite all the hardships that we have gone through over generations. Humans are the same, I see. Even though our races have always been enemies, at this moment I forget about all of that and appreciate how strong and resilient we really are. My thoughts are consumed by Vala again. The thick fur blanket draped over her chest, the feeling of her curves against my body. I'm half tempted to march right back into her tent and take her again. This was a mistake. I'm useless now. I make my way to the nearest fire and grab a bowl of porridge, trying to get my mind off of things. As I eat, I take a look around the campsite, watching as everyone goes about their business. It's a strange feeling, being surrounded by my own kind, yet feeling so isolated and alone at the same time. I finish my breakfast and head over to where the other orcs are practicing with their weapons. I pick up a sword and start to swing it, trying to focus on the movements and the feel of the blade in my hand. But my mind keeps going back to Vala, and the guilt and desire that I feel. I can't help but wonder what she's thinking, or if she regrets what happened between us. I'm so lost in thought that I don't even notice when another orc comes up beside me and starts practicing with his own sword. He's a younger orc, with bright green skin and a wild mane of hair. I recognize him as one of the newer members of our tribe, and I wonder how he's adjusting to life here. "Hey," he says, grinning at me. "You're pretty good with that thing." I nod, not really in the mood for conversation, but he doesn't seem to take the hint. "I'm Grom," he says, holding out his hand. "What's your name?" I hesitate for a moment before taking his hand and shaking it. "I'm Goruk," I say. "Nice to meet you, Goruk," he says, grinning. I can't help but feel a flicker of annoyance at his persistence, but I know that I can't take it out on him. He's just trying to make conversation and be friendly. "Likewise," I say with a small smile. "How do you like it here so far?" Grom shrugs. "It's all right, I guess. Everyone seems pretty tough and serious, but I'm getting used to it." I nod in understanding. "It can be tough at first, but you'll get used to it. We all have our roles to play here." Grom nods eagerly, and I can see a glimmer of excitement in his eyes. "Yeah, I've been training hard. I want to be a great warrior like you guys." I feel a pang of guilt at his words. I don't feel like a great warrior, not anymore. All I can think about is Vala and the mess that I've made. But I put on a brave face and try to encourage him. "Keep at it, Grom. You'll get there with enough practice." He grins at me, and I can see that he's genuinely excited about his future as an orc warrior. It's a bittersweet feeling, knowing that I used to feel that way too, but now I'm consumed by guilt and uncertainty. We continue to practice with our swords, and I try to push Vala out of my mind, but it's no use. She's always there, lingering in the back of my thoughts. Finally, I see the elders head towards the war tent. I need to meet up with Vala so we can see Hyzen. I say goodbye to Grom and then head off in the direction of Vala's hut. The air has taken on a chill, but I hardly notice it. I need to end this now before it's too late.
Chapter 23. Valor. I see the very familiar frame of Goruk heading toward me, his orcish frame blocking out the sun from my eyes. I raise my hand, giving him a happy wave as he moves closer to me. Instead of greeting me in the same way, he nods once before stopping in front of me. "Are you ready?" he asks. I nod slowly, and without another word he turns and starts heading in the direction toward Hyzen's tent. Quickly following after him, I shuffle the papers in my hands as I try to make small talk. I assumed that he had things to do in the morning when I woke up alone, but now I'm wondering if I read him wrong. Goruk looks stiff, upset. Does he regret our night together, or is he simply tense about meeting with Hyzen? "So, did you sleep well?" I gently butt his arm with my elbow, and hardly a chuff of a laugh leaves him. "I did, and yourself?" he asks, without the same teasing tone. He's almost polite, coldly polite. Unease curls in my belly. I thought that we shared something special, but what if he's like the rest of the orcs in camp? I'd suggested celebrating, hadn't I? Is that all he thinks of me? Some human to blow off steam with and forget about the next day? I did, I answer. The energy radiates passiveness off him, enough so that I take a step back and follow from behind him. The rest of our walk is silent, giving me too much time to think. What happened between Goruk and I? I replay the last few days in my head, trying to pinpoint the moment when everything changed. He was so sweet and genuine when we were collaborating on the interrogation, walking me to my tent at night, even fumbling to pour wine properly. Had I done something wrong? Was it something that he said? I search my brain for any clue as to what had happened, but no answer seems to come. No matter how many times I go through our interactions, nothing seems off. In fact, all of them had been quite nice and charismatic, unlike today's walk in near-complete silence. Is it because we finally screwed? Did he get what he wanted? Or, here's a worse thought, maybe he decided I'm not what he wants at all. Maybe he's just tired from the mission, or maybe his mind is elsewhere. But whatever it is, there's definitely a cold chill in the air that neither of us are willing to break. As we reach Hyzen's tent and Goruk steps aside for me to enter first, I can't help but feel like something is off about him, like there is an invisible wall between us that wasn't there before. Shaking away my thoughts, I greet Hyzen politely along with Goruk. I'm assuming seeing both of you in my tent means good news, Hyzen says. Goruk nods. He looks as though he just swallowed a lemon. The Dark Elf has made claims I think you'll want to hear. Hyzen sits and gestures for us to do the same. Well? He says Prothika is real, I say. He's right, Hyzen says, voice even. Did you never hear the Dark Elves speak about it before? I frown. They mentioned odd places. I thought they were camp names I'd never heard of before. Perthos, Voig. Hyzen nods. Cities on Protheka. He came from there. They all came from Protheka, I say. I look at Goruk, but he's uncharacteristically quiet. Caspian says that he found a stone, a dawn stone. Hyzen says nothing. Goruk finally speaks. He wanted to be captured. The dawn stone opens a portal from Protheka to Earth. There's a sister stone, and if the elves find it, they'll be able to drain all magic from Protheka and establish it here. Goruk pauses, gesturing for me to continue as he takes a step back. Caspian mentioned that he was the first one to find the dawn stone, but he doesn't want the elves to have it. He needs us to destroy the original stone, on Protheka. The room remains silent as Hyzen takes in what we have said, his eyes narrowing slightly at the mention of destroying one of Protheka's stones. After a few moments he speaks. This is troubling news, he says slowly. It appears that we have a lot to discuss and much to do if we are to prevent the Dark Elves from taking back their magic. Hyzen's face brightens slightly as he looks between Goruk and I, his hands outstretched towards me with an expression of pure gratitude on his face. You have both done an incredible job. I'll share this information with Old Malik as soon as I'm able. He compliments us. Goruk, your research was most impressive, and Valor, you followed through with all you were told, even when it was hard. He holds his hand out in my direction for me to hand over the papers I'm holding, which I do without a word. I take a step back and bow my head before turning and walking away, without saying goodbye to Goruk. The weirdness between us still lingers in the air like fog on a cold morning. But there is nothing more that can be done about it now. If he doesn't want me, I'm not going to beg. Valor. He calls after me and I stop. Maybe I read him wrong. Maybe he just needed time. Maybe... His eyes are still cold as he leans in close to me so no one else can hear. Listen, last night was fun, but I don't think it can happen again. Not with everything at stake. Do you understand? It's like my blood has turned to ice. I understand perfectly. Something in his eyes shifts at that, but I turn away too quickly to read it. I don't want to read it. I've heard the orcs talk enough amongst each other in camp to know exactly what he's thinking. I've been so stupid. I stomp back to my tent, thinking about what a damned fool I've been. It was all just a game or an experiment to him. The thought makes my stomach churn as I realise that he may have only seen me as a tool, an object to be used for his own pleasure. I sigh heavily and push away these negative thoughts, focusing instead on the mission ahead. The thought of the mission brings back memories of my training and all the time and energy I've put into it. I can't let Goruk's sudden change in attitude distract me from my goal. I shake my head, trying to clear it of all distractions, but it's no use. The image of Goruk's muscular arms wrapped around me, his lips on my neck, and his deep voice whispering in my ear keeps replaying in my mind. I can't help but feel angry at myself for being so vulnerable and allowing him to get so close to me. He's probably off to the alehouse now to regale everyone with stories of our night together. As I reach my tent, I take a deep breath and compose myself. I can't let these emotions get in the way of the mission. I need to stay focused and professional. I enter my tent and light a candle, casting a warm glow over the small space. I take a seat, trying to clear my mind and focus on the task ahead. But instead of focusing on the mission, my thoughts drift back to Goruk and the passionate night we shared together. I can't help but feel almost dirty, and an uncomfortable feeling of guilt settles in my stomach. I try to sit with my own thoughts, but decide that maybe a bath is really what I need. I quickly blow out the candle and grab my empty bucket from beside the entrance to my tent before heading over to the well nearby. I can hear the loud clanging of swords in the distance and the bustle of camp life all around me. I take a moment to simply appreciate how beautiful it all is around me. The slight breeze playing with strands of my hair as I walk through tall grass brushing against my legs. I might feel like crap inside, but the world is still turning. I'll be fine. Eventually. When I reach the well, I set down my bucket and begin filling it with fresh water from the spout at its side. As I watch drops fall into its depths, I imagine myself sinking into them and letting all of their weightlessness wash away any worry or sorrow that lingers within my heart, like dust settling after a storm. As I'm filling the bucket, I catch a glimpse of Goruk out of the corner of my eye. He's standing at the edge of camp talking with a few other men. For a moment, I consider going over and seeing if we can at least part on amicable terms, but then I remember how he treated me and turn on my heel and head back to my tent.
Chapter 24. Goruk. I hope Hyzen has a plan for this. Thuk's voice echoes everyone's concern. I nod absent-mindedly, my eyes locked on Vala's body heading toward the water well. She doesn't even look up at me as I go to take a step toward her. Goruk, where are you going? The gravelly voice of an orc friend beside me asks. I look back to my friends and gesture over to the direction of Vala. I wanted to... Thuk cuts me off with a laugh. Talk to her. She's already gone. I turn back around and sure enough, Vala is nowhere in sight. I could have sworn she saw me. She must have left before I could speak to her. I feel an anger boiling up inside, mostly at myself, and I stifle it down as I bid my friends goodbye. I can hear their chuckles as I leave, and it only makes me feel worse. I walk away from the group, my thoughts consumed with Vala. I can't blame her for avoiding me, not after I was so cold to her this morning. But surely she can understand that this is for the best. There are dawnstones and the future of my people to consider. I don't have time for Vala. So why is Vala the only person I want to see right now? Enough. I leave my men and walk back to the war tent. I need to focus on the battles that are to come. Not the elegant curve of Vala's neck, or how the sound she makes when she swings a sword is the same as when I push inside her just right. I take a deep breath, trying to calm down before entering the tent. I can hear conversations inside, and it seems like everyone is planning out our next journey. As soon as I step in, all eyes turn towards me and they suddenly become silent. Goruk, we were just talking about you, Hyzen says with a broad grin on his face. Everyone else starts chattering again, and it feels like the tension from before has been forgotten entirely. I sit down at one of the tables and take in my surroundings. There are maps spread out everywhere, along with various weapons that are meant for protection against any creatures we might come across on our journey. Everyone is discussing strategy and making plans for what comes next. As everyone continues to talk about our future endeavors, my mind drifts back to Valor once more. It's hard not to think about her when she's always around, but here I am once again trying to make sense of things without any real answers. Hyzen talks about disrupting search parties, telling everyone present that he expects the Dark Elves to conduct more raids down south. He doesn't say why, and I don't volunteer any information other than the tactics I've used against their soldiers in the past. Yes, they still have magic. No, they're not able to coordinate it well. Yes, they prefer archers to cavalry. No, their swordsmen unfortunately aren't crap. They're strong for being so much smaller than we are. It's important information. I can't focus on any of it. Soon the meeting wraps up, and instead of lingering, I leap to my feet. Hyzen dismisses everyone except for me, and I feel a wave of surprise wash over me. Goruk, stay behind. I have a secondary matter to discuss with you. Everyone else looks at me as if they're trying to figure out what's going on. When the room is empty and it's just him and me, he turns towards me and his eyes narrow slightly. You seem distracted, he says in an inquisitive tone, as if he knows there's something bothering me. Hyzen's words bring me back to reality and I force a smile, hoping it looks genuine enough. Just a bit tired, that's all, I say, not wanting to reveal my true thoughts and feelings. Hard to sleep well with Taruik snoring next door. But Hyzen isn't convinced, and he leans in closer, his eyes still fixed on me. Is there something else bothering you? You know you can talk to me about anything. I shake my head, feeling my face flush. I don't want to open up to Hyzen about this right now. I don't even fully understand what's going on myself. No, it's nothing, I manage to say, averting my gaze away from him and pretending to be interested in the maps laid out on the table. He lets out a deep sigh and nods his head slowly, knowing that I'm not ready to talk yet. All right then, he says quietly, before clapping his hands together. You heard what I said about receiving reports of increased activity from the Dark Elves around the neighboring orc camps, he says in a serious tone, bringing me out of my thoughts. It appears that they are making their presence known, and we must take action quickly before more damage is done. He paces around the room as he talks, his eyes full of intensity as he expresses his concerns about the matter at hand. It's clear that this is an issue that needs to be taken seriously, and I can sense the urgency in his voice. We need to create a plan of attack and move quickly before it's too late. If we can succeed in taking down these camps, then we should be able to secure our borders and keep them safe from any potential threats. He stops pacing and looks up at me with an expectant look on his face, as if waiting for my response. I take a deep breath before speaking up, knowing full well what needs to be done in order to keep everyone safe. I'm ready when you are, I say firmly, determination radiating from my voice. Hyzen nods his head in approval and begins to lay out his plan. We need to step up all patrols around the camps. Exactly what I need. Distance from camp and the opportunity to slice the heads off Dark Elves. I'll round up patrols now. Yes, but have Lanthic take the lead. I'll need you to remain in camp. I want more answers from Caspian. He looks directly at me and I can tell from the expression on his face that he knows what he's asking of me. It takes every ounce of self-control I have not to rub my hands over my face and groan. I assume you want me to continue working with Valor? Why change a good thing? Hyzen's voice sounds suspiciously innocent. You make a good team, I think. I understand, I say with a slight nod, knowing full well that this is something I must do. Are we agreed then? He asks, looking around at me with an expectant look on his face. Yes, I say. I'll let Valor know.
Chapter 25. Valor. If he can be cold, so can I mutter, trying to reassure myself. It doesn't work. I'm still upset. Normally, I'd work out this aggression in the training centre, but I don't want to risk running into Goruk until I've calmed down. I pace in my tent. There are many reasons he broke things off, I argue with myself. Maybe he doesn't want Hyzen to know about us. Maybe he wants to keep it professional. I try to justify these explanations, but I can taste the lies on my tongue as I say them. We could have remained professional but friendly. He's the one who started flirting with me first, isn't he? Unless maybe he is embarrassed by me. Maybe he doesn't want a human. Maybe he was just using me for sex like so many of the orc men do. My chest squeezes at the possibility, at the humiliation of it. I had gotten caught up in the moment. I had fallen for the charm of a handsome orc, like I had seen so many human women do. Our interaction came to the same conclusion that almost all human female and male orc sexual interactions come to. Love them and leave them, nut them and bolt. I have heard orcs talk about human women that way since I was a child. I should know better. My mind circles through the reasons his attitude could shift so drastically, but I keep returning to the same conclusion. He must regret sleeping with me. The thought makes me both mad that I wasted my time on him and sad that he rejected me. It was worse than humiliating. Tears threaten to fall as I continue to pace in my tent. They make me feel foolish. I am crying over a man, an orc man no less. I can't stay in my tent all day feeling sorry for myself. I refuse to be pathetic. On a whim, I decide to go hunting. I won't risk running into Goruk, and perhaps it might clear my head and help ease the pain of rejection. At the very least, it's better than pacing in my tent and overthinking and analysing each of my interactions with Goruk. It will give me time to cool off, to get my head on straight to face Goruk again. I dress quickly in warm clothes and light armour. I check my arrows and find them in good order, newly polished, sharp and ready for a hunt. I load them carefully in my quiver and sling it and my bow over my shoulder. The sun is shining happily when I step out of my tent, reminding me the world will go on despite the emotional cloud hanging over me. Its rays warm my head and shoulders. I take a deep breath and try to shake off the events and revel in the peace that embarking on a hunt always brings me. I set out to the forest, but have only made it a few paces from my tent before I hear my name being called. Valor. I know it is him by his voice. He sounds angry. Of course, fate wouldn't be as kind as to let me slip unnoticed into the woods today. I turn to watch Goruk stomp toward me. He looks at my bow and arrows and frowns. For a second, I think of capitulating and following whatever directive he is about to spew at me, and then I remember his attitude this morning and lift my chin. "What the hell do you think you are doing?" Goruk asks, waving his arms in the air incredulously. "I'm taking the day off," I answer him stubbornly. I try not to notice how handsome he is, and I begin to realise maintaining my professionalism around him may be harder than I originally anticipated. "Taking the day off?" he scoffs and runs a frustrated hand down his face. "We have work to do." "It can wait a few hours." I raise my brows defiantly. "Wait a few hours? This is war, Valor. I thought you were smart enough to recognise the seriousness of that." His eyes cloud with anger. I work to maintain my cool exterior, but inside I flinch at his insult. It is becoming clearer he must consider me just another human, he did. Another notch on his axe handle. I take a breath and stiffen my spine. I may be just a human, but I was raised and trained amongst orcs. I can give as good as I get. "We found out the important information, didn't we? We celebrated." For a second, he looks almost ashamed. Then his face pulls into the arrogant mask I know so well. Is it a mask if he wears it so much, or is it just his face? "Hyzen wants us to keep interrogating Caspian." "I'm sure you'll manage," I argue. "After all, I am only a female human and not of much use. I spin on my heel and make it another 3 steps before I feel his hand circle my arm. I can't believe you. We are so close and you're going to waste time because you want to take the day off, he demands. Let, Mr. Go. I inflect my voice with as much coolness as I can muster. I yank my arm and his eyes darken in anger, but he lets me go. He takes a half a step back, but leans down so his face is close to mine, making sure to invade my space. We have an opportunity to change the course of this world, he growls quietly. It's more important than anything else. It has to be. I fight the urge to shudder under his voice. He had been angry with me before, but never enough to growl threats, never enough to make me fear him. I could just back down, give in. I can fight to be professional. I can work to be able to manage being by his side while we interrogate Caspian. But man, it hurts. Tears sting my eyes, and I drop my head for a second, looking down and away to buy myself the precious time I need to will my tears away. It would only further my humiliation to cry in front of this orc that so casually tossed me aside. I bite the inside of my cheek to distract myself and raise my head to meet his eyes. They remain cold and uncaring, as if we had never shared a pleasant moment, let alone shared our bodies. I'm going hunting, I state. I am pleased to find my voice is steady and doesn't betray the hurt and humiliation I feel. Hunting? He shakes his head and tightens his jaw until the little muscles beneath his ears tick in anger. The future of this planet and of other worlds entirely could depend on us, and you are going hunting. The future can wait. I lift my chin again and maintain eye contact with him, willing myself to meet the challenge in his tone. It can wait, he says. Are you that freaking selfish? I shake my head and step past him. I know I should be helping him. I know we should be interrogating Caspian, but now as tears begin to flow freely down my face, I realise I like Goruk more than I'd like, and his cool treatment and dismissal of me hurts more than I thought. You're serious? He shouts after me, though this time he lets me walk away. You're actually leaving? I can't work with him. At least not now. I can't be the professional human the orcs have come to count on. I let one love me and leave me. There is nothing to respect in that. No professionalism that should be accorded to me. I need a few hours to scrap my remaining self-respect together. I need some time alone, in the forest, to remind myself who I am.
Chapter 26. Goruk. The camp has been rife with life all night. The other orcs drink and laugh. Yet as they all enjoy their night, I find myself still grumbling to myself. I sit by the main fire and glance at the front gate every so often. Several hours have passed since Valor left to go hunting, and there has been no sign of her return yet. With a mug of ale in my hand, I pour the liquid down my gullet. I'm sure that if one were to look at me, I would appear as if I had been dehydrated for weeks with the carelessness I drank. I wipe the drink from my chin and toss the empty mug aside. Where the hell is she? I groan. The sun has begun to set over the mountains and left a faint orange light as a parting gift, though this will be gone soon. No sensible person would still be away from camp this late, especially now that it's begun to rain. I lift myself up from my spot and decide to search for that blasted woman. The gate guards ought to have seen her return. It won't hurt to check in with them. I stomp towards the gate, my boots sinking into the muddy ground as I make my way through the bustling camp. The night air is thick with the scent of roasted meats and smoky fires, mingling with the unmistakable odor of orc sweat. The sound of raucous laughter and drunken shouts fills the air, creating a chaotic symphony that seems to drown out my worries. As I approach the looming gate, guarded by 2 burly orcs adorned in tattered armor, I notice their eyes widen with surprise at my presence. They exchange a quick glance before one of them, with a scarred face, steps forward to address me. "What do you need, Goruk?" he grumbles. I narrow my eyes at him, trying to push down the boiling annoyance within me. "Information," I reply curtly. "Has Valor returned? I've been waiting for her." The guards exchange another glance, their expressions shifting from surprise to concern. The scarred orc scratches his unkempt beard, contemplating his response. "Haven't seen her since she left," he finally admits. My frustration surges through me like a raging inferno. How could she disappear without a trace? Has something terrible befallen her? I force myself to take a deep breath, attempting to quell the rising panic within my chest. "Listen," I say firmly, trying to keep my voice steady despite the tremor within me. "I need you to notify me immediately when she returns. Understood?" The scarred orc nods, his gaze meeting mine with a newfound seriousness. "Aye, Goruk. We'll send word right away if we see her." With a curt nod of appreciation, I pivot on my heel and head back into the camp, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on my shoulders. Every step I take feels heavier than the last, as if the very ground beneath me is trying to keep me anchored in place. Tension coils around my heart as I make my way through the labyrinthine paths of the camp. The laughter and merriment that once seemed like a shield against my worries now feels hollow, mocking me with its false cheer. I walk with purpose, my gaze scanning the faces of every orc I pass, desperately hoping to catch a glimpse of Vala's fiery mane or her mischievous grin. As I approach Vala's tent, my steps slow, and a feeling of dread settles over me. The flickering torches cast eerie shadows on the fabric walls, creating an otherworldly dance of light and darkness. I reach out to push open the tent flap, but my hand hesitates in midair. What if she's inside? What if she returned while I was searching for her? My mind races with possibilities, each one darker and more foreboding than the last. Summoning all my courage, I let out a shaky breath and push aside the tent flap. The scent of musky leather and wild herbs permeates the air, familiar and comforting yet tinged with an undercurrent of unease. The space inside is dimly lit by a small oil lamp, casting long, distorted shadows on the cloth walls. But Vala is nowhere to be seen. My heart sinks, the weight of worry threatening to crush me as I take in the empty tent. The bed lies undisturbed, the table cluttered with ink and paper, but no sign of Vala. Panic rises within me like the tide, threatening to consume all reason. Frantic thoughts swirl through my mind. Could she have been captured? Or worse, killed? 1,000 horrific scenarios play out in my head, each one more terrifying than the last. My fingers clench into fists as I struggle to keep my composure. I force myself to take a step back, to breathe and think rationally. Vala is resourceful, cunning even. She can handle herself in dangerous situations. But what if this time was different? What if she had walked into a trap she couldn't escape from? The image of Vala in danger haunts my mind, igniting a fire within me that refuses to be extinguished. Determination courses through my veins, overpowering the fear that threatens to paralyze me. I know what I must do. Without hesitation, I turn on my heel and stride purposefully towards my own tent. My gaze falls upon my sturdy great axe tucked away in the corner, its metal blade adorned with numerous scratches depicting tales of my bravery and adventures. I reach down and pick the mighty weapon up. With a firm grip on the axe's worn leather handle, I feel a surge of energy course through me, as if the weapon itself is imbued with ancient magic. It hums with a quiet intensity, resonating with the determination that burns within my very soul. This axe will be my companion as I venture into the depths of the surrounding forests in search of Vala. Leaving behind the safety of the orc camp, I step into the lush greenery that stretches out before me. The scent of pine needles fills my nostrils, mingling with the earthy aroma of damp soil. The forest seems alive, its towering trees leaning over me like ancient sentinels guarding their hidden treasures. Shafts of moonlight filter through the dense canopy, casting dappled patterns on the forest floor, enticing me deeper into its mysterious depths. As I tread carefully, my senses sharpened by apprehension. I become acutely aware of every subtle sound and movement around me. The gentle rustling of leaves overhead, the distant hoot of an owl, and the occasional crackling of twigs under my boots create a symphony of nature's orchestra. Struggling to see in the dark, I extend my hand to brush aside a low-hanging branch, but my fingers meet only empty air. Perplexed, I take another step forward and realize too late that the ground beneath me gives way. With a startled gasp, I plummet into a concealed pitfall trap. My body twists and contorts as I descend into the void. The air rushes past me, a cacophony of whirling wind and disoriented thoughts. Panic grips me tightly, threatening to consume every rational thought in my mind. Finally, with a dull thud, I land on a bed of decayed leaves and moss-covered stones. Pain radiates through my limbs as I struggle to catch my breath. I curse under my breath, berating myself for being so careless. The trap is cleverly constructed, its sides steep and unyielding. Above me, I can make out the faint outline of the starry sky, teasing me with its unreachable freedom. Soft rain falls, making the sides even more difficult to escape, even before I realize that my leg has been ensnared in a metal trap.
Chapter 27. Valor. As the sunlight grants its final goodbye and allows its sister of darkness to take hold of the sky, the time for me to return back to camp has come. This hunt has proven fruitless, though I do not wear surprise or disappointment. Any seasoned hunter with even a modicum of experience would know that just after first light is the best time to hunt. Damn him, I grunt. My mind goes back to why I left camp in the first place. Goruk and I finally got close. After our night of passion, however, something was different. My time in the forest has been less for actual hunting and more to simply blow off steam. I can't stand being around him right now. Not when he acts so indifferent to me. Was I really just another conquest for him? Did he only want to be with me as if I was some sort of trophy of a battle to be won? In my anger, I stab my hunting knife into a tree. Why am I so upset over him? It's not like I stop myself short as I hear a loud thud nearby. I pull my knife out of the tree and pocket it into my boot. Whatever it was, I decide to go searching for it. As I make my way through the dense forest, the moon's luminous glow filters through the canopy above, casting ethereal shadows on the forest floor. Nocturnal creatures serenade me as I navigate the winding trails, their voices blending harmoniously with the rustling of leaves and the distant hooting of an owl. But there are more dangerous creatures in these forests. The air is thick with anticipation, the kind that clings to my skin like the light drizzle from the sky. I can sense something amiss, a flicker of unease that dances at the edges of my consciousness. My instincts sharpen, every fibre of my being attuned to the subtleties of nature's language. A soft breeze whispers through the trees, carrying with it a faint sound that makes me halt in my tracks. I know that muffled cursing well. My heart quickens its pace as a foreboding sense of urgency washes over me. "Goruk," I whisper. My feet move swiftly, following the scent like a hound on a trail. The forest seems to bend and twist around me, as if it, too, senses the urgency in my veins. The moonlight guides my way, shining down through patches in the canopy like celestial breadcrumbs leading me forward. As I approach a clearing bathed in moonlight, a sight unfolds before me that shatters the fragile remnants of tranquility I have left. There I find the source of that sound. Goruk is at the bottom of a pitfall that has been made by some of our fellow clan members. It was designed to trap and restrain bears and the like, and thus had not triggered under my lithe frame. Unlike Goruk, with his muscular form writhing against the restraints, his skin shimmers with sweat, and his eyes burn with a mixture of fury and helplessness. "God damn it all!" he curses. I can't help but laugh a little at the sight, mostly in relief. This bear trap is large enough to have snapped him in two if he'd landed wrong. Thankfully, it appears as though the trap has only snapped around his leg inside of through it. I've never seen him in such a compromising situation. His infuriated eyes snap to me, drawn by my muffled giggle. His shoulders sag in relief, and the cold aloofness he'd projected earlier today have left him completely. This is the orc I know. "Valor!" he yells. "There you are. I've been looking for you everywhere." "Including at the bottom of a hole," I chide. "The situation is not how it appears." "Really?" "Because it looks like you're stuck and you need my help." The sound of the forest fills a moment of silence between us. Goruk looks down at his leg, and then back up to me. The tips of his ears turn a dark green. "Okay, it is exactly as it appears," Goruk admits. "Will you please give me a hand, or better yet, a branch? My leg is stuck in this vile contraption, and I can't get a grip on anything to pull myself out." Yeah, you clumsy oaf. I'll find you something." My words trail off as I realise something strange. The symphony of nocturnal creatures that once serenaded me has fallen silent. The rustling leaves and hooting owl have vanished, replaced by an eerie stillness that settles over the forest like a heavy blanket. All I can hear is the soft, gentle fall of the rain. I glance around, a shiver coursing down my spine. The air feels charged with an otherworldly energy, and an unsettling hollowness hangs in the atmosphere. What was a vibrant and bustling woodland has transformed into a desolate and foreboding realm. Unease clenches at my chest as I take hesitant steps forward, my senses attuned to any sign of danger. The moon's luminous rays, once comforting and guiding, now cast elongated shadows that dance ominously on the forest floor. Every breath I take feels heavy and laboured, as though the forest itself is holding its breath in anticipation of something greater than us. My heart thrums in my ears, its rhythm echoing through the silence. Just then, a branch snaps in the distance behind me. I knock an arrow into my bow and aim it in the direction of the sound. Before I can find a target, I notice a spark and crackle up above. Just then, a purple lightning bolt strikes down on one of the trees above me. "Valor!" Goruk yells. Before I can respond, another sharp crack rings out, this time the tree that was stuck. It falls down into the pitfall. The sky above had no sign of any storm before. This lightning isn't natural. Dark elves, I surmise. The only explanation for a magical attack like that. But what are they doing all the way out here? I wonder to myself. Searching for Caspian? Searching for the stone? As I duck behind a nearby tree, trying to catch my breath, I can hear the distinct whistle of another arrow whizzing through the air. The dark elves are relentless, their aim impeccable. Every time I think I've found a momentary refuge, they use their vile magic to fell the very tree I'm hiding behind. Their malevolent laughter cuts through the eerie silence of the forest, sending shivers down my spine. It's as if they take pleasure in this deadly game of cat and mouse. Their glowing eyes pierce through the darkness, haunting and filled with malice. I duck behind a nearby tree, trying to catch my breath. Where did that arrow come from? I whisper to myself. Suddenly, I hear another arrow whistle through the air, barely missing me as it embeds itself into the tree trunk. Persistent bastards, I mutter. The dark elves continue shooting, their aim impeccable. Each time I think I've found a moment of safety, they use their magic to fell the tree, forcing me to run again. Their malevolent laughter echoes through the forest. Come out, wherever you are," one of them taunts. I grasp my bow tightly, fingers trembling. I notch an arrow and let it fly at the closest elf. "Got you!" I cry out as he falls. But how many are left? As I turn to take cover behind another tree, I feel myself bump into a figure. I fall backwards, fumbling for my knife. But the dark elf is too fast. He grabs my arms and wraps a hand around my throat, lifting me off the ground. I kick and thrash. "Let me go," I choke out. He slams me against a fallen tree trunk. I try to scream in pain, but can barely make a sound. Desperately, I grasp for anything to use as a weapon, but nothing is within reach. With a gasp, I feel myself almost crying out for help, begging for someone to help. And then the grip loosens. The elf falls away. I cough and gulp air into my burning, starving lungs, looking to see what saved me. At first, I see nothing but blood. The elf's head sits at my feet in some sort of gory offering, the gleam of a metal axe head right down the centre of his head, blood dripping down the sides. With a grunt, he is pulled back and kicked aside. As I look up, the moonlight shines down on my saviour. Goruk stands before me, his breath ragged and chest heaving with adrenaline. His eyes meet mine, filled with a mixture of concern and relief. Without a word, he reaches out his hand to help me up. I take it gladly, feeling the warmth of his touch instantly calming my racing heart. As I rise to my feet, we stand there for a moment, our bodies inches apart, caught in the aftermath of the chaos that surrounded us. The forest is still, as if holding its breath, as if aware of the charged atmosphere between us. His presence fills me with a rush of emotions, an overwhelming mix of gratitude and love that threatens to consume me. I thought I was done for, I managed to stammer, my voice barely audible amidst the chaos surrounding us. The elves are gone, he says. If they come back, they'll see worse than this. Goruk turns toward me, his fierce gaze softening as he takes in my vulnerable state. Without a second thought, he closes the distance between us, his powerful arms enveloping me in a protective embrace. The warmth of his muscled chest against mine provides an indescribable comfort, erasing the fright and uncertainty that had engulfed me only moments before. Valor, he whispers, his voice hoarse yet filled with a tenderness I've never heard before. Are you hurt? Are you all right? His words hang in the air, heavy with unspoken emotions and uncharted territory. I drink in the sight of him, his tousled hair dampened by sweat, his broad shoulders tense yet protective. I am now, thanks to you. I admit. But how did you get free? He slowly lets go of me, sinking the axe of his into the fallen tree beside us. The first tree that fell provided the perfect way for me to free my leg and pull myself out. It took me a bit to climb up the damn thing. I chuckle softly, relieved that he had found a way to escape. Well, I'm grateful for your resourcefulness, I say, my voice laced with genuine admiration. You saved my life, Goruk. A faint blush tinges his cheeks, and his eyes flicker with a mixture of bashfulness and something more profound. Valor, there's something I need to tell you, he begins, his voice trembling ever so slightly. My heart skips a beat at the seriousness in his tone. I take a step closer to him, my eyes locked on his as if trying to decode the unspoken words hidden within their depths. What is it? I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Goruk takes a deep breath, his gaze never wavering from mine. I've been carrying this secret within me for far too long, he confesses, emotion swelling in his voice. I've watched you from afar, admiring your strength and courage, and, Valor, I've fallen desperately in love with you. My breath catches in my throat at his confession. The world around us seems to fade away as the weight of his words sinks in. A mix of disbelief and elation courses through me, intertwining like the branches of the ancient forest surrounding us. I look up into his eyes, my own filled with a vulnerable mix of surprise and longing. Goruk's declaration hangs in the air between us, heavy with anticipation and possibility. The chaos of our near-death encounter seems to fade into insignificance as my heart swells with a newfound emotion. I reach out, my trembling hand finding its way to his cheek, the roughness of his stubble contrasting against the softness of my touch. A ripple of electricity courses through me at the contact, igniting a fire that burns deep within. Why did you push me away? He sighs. Valor, I thought that loving you, being with you, would distract from the war. But I can't stop it any more than I can stop the rain. I don't want to. When I saw you in danger, I shut my eyes. It's hard to look at the tender expression on his face, hard to believe it's real. But it is, and it's all for me. I tried to push you away too, I admit. I didn't want to be another girl who fell into an orc's bed only to be mocked about it later. When I thought you used me, I couldn't stand it. I would never, he vowed. Goruk, I whisper, barely able to find my voice amidst the whirlwind of emotions. I love you too. Goruk's eyes widen momentarily, as if he can't believe what he has just heard. And then, with a surge of emotion that mirrors my own, he closes the final distance between us. His lips collide with mine in a searing kiss, igniting a fire that consumes us both. The weight of our shared passion presses us together, erasing all sense of time and space. In this moment, there is only Goruk and I, and the undeniable truth of our love.
Chapter 28. Goruk. My eyes scan her small body, searching for any signs of harm. I can't stop it, even though I know she's safe. The sight of her unharmed fills me with a wave of pure relief that washes over me. With a swift motion, I gather her into my arms and carry her away from the blood and remains of the dark elves who dared try to attack her. The air is thick with the acrid smell of their blood. Every step feels like a heavy weight on my feet, but I push forward, focused on getting us to safety. My arms tighten around her, shielding her from the chaos surrounding us. At this moment, all that matters is keeping her safe in my embrace. Vala's voice strains as she asks, "What are you doing? I can walk just fine." I know. She can do anything. Vala held off dark elves even with their magic on her own until I could crawl out of the trap I'd fallen into. I just want to hold you, I admit. Her grip on my shoulders tightens as I continue walking away from the chaos, each step sinking into the soft earth. But just before we reach the perimeter of our camp, I halt. The air is thick with smoke and the smell of burning wood. Standing still, I close my eyes and try to block out the chaos, searching for even a moment of peace in this tragedy. Above us, the vast expanse of the night sky is scattered with a multitude of stars, each one twinkling and glimmering like a diamond. The rains have finally stopped. My heart races as I take in her exquisite beauty, magnified by the gentle glow of the celestial lights. Her long tresses cascade around her like a waterfall against the verdant backdrop of the grass. As she gazes up at me, her eyes radiate with an emotion that I can only describe as pure adoration and love. Our breaths mingle and swirl in the air as we inch closer to one another. Our heartbeats quicken, filling the space between us with a pulsing rhythm. With just inches separating our faces, I can feel the warmth radiating from Vala's skin, beckoning me closer. As our lips finally meet in a fiery kiss, it feels like all my worries and doubts dissolve into nothingness. Vala's embrace is tight and secure, pulling me into her. The ground is damp from the rain, so I rip off my shirt and lay it down for her on the grass. I quickly ease her down to lay across it before laying down on top of her. "You won't need your shirt?" I laugh as her hands begin to work on removing her trousers. I don't think either of us need clothes right now. I mean later. I don't care about later. I'd meant to carry her back to my tent, but neither of us can wait any longer. I'll carry her shirtless back into camp. Hell, I'll carry her back stark naked if that's what it takes. I make quick work of helping her remove her clothes before removing mine as well. Once we are both completely naked, I lay back over her and lean down to capture her lips in another kiss. This chapter's heat level is off the charts, too much for YouTube, in fact. But you can catch every sizzling detail at worldsofprathika.com. Don't forget to use code YouTube30 for a hot discount. Now back to where we left off. My hand trembles slightly as I reach out and intertwine my fingers with hers. I gaze into her eyes, searching for any sign of doubt or hesitation. But all I see is love, and trust, reflecting at me in the warm glow of the moonlight. And in this moment I know that this is where I belong, with her by my side. Vala, I start, my voice shaking with both fear and hope. I want to be with you now and forever. You are my mate, and I will never let anything hurt you again. The weight of my promise hangs between us, heavy yet filled with certainty. Her smile radiates across her face. A subtle nod of her head confirms what we both already know, what we must have known the first time we met. We belong together. We bask in the moment, savoring it as we let the memories of what is currently transpiring wash over us. The weight of our duty hangs heavy in the air, but for tonight, we push it aside to make time for each other. I brush her hair from her forehead. Your shirt is ruined, I think, she says after a moment. I don't care. The camp will. You know how they love gossip. Her shoulders stiffen beside me, and I know she's thinking about how the orcs constantly gossip about Teruik's various women, about human women in general. I'll carry you straight to my tent when we're done here, I say, an edge to my voice. And the only thing the camp will say a damn word about will be our mating ceremony, which will be the best one this camp has ever seen. She blinks up at me. I told you I love you. You love me. I trail off. I suppose it is customary to ask first. You will be my mate, won't you? I know that I hurt her. In this moment, as she looks up at me, arms curling around my neck, she could destroy me with one word. She doesn't. Vala hides her face in my neck and nods, and then I'm pulling her in for another kiss, and another. We'll make for camp soon, but for now we have each other, and the stars and the future. It's all we need.
There isn't much left of the world after the orcs came.
Savage. Brutal. Merciless.
If you're a woman, you're property. Even to other humans.
What happens when an orc stakes his claim on a human woman? Who would dare to stop him?
Me. Chapter 29. Valor. The trip back to camp is quiet. The only sound is the soft crunch of dead leaves under our feet. Goruk and I walk hand in hand, our fingers intertwined. The moonlight filtering through the trees casts dappled shadows on the forest floor, painting a picture of tranquility. We have just shared a moment, and the world seems to be in perfect harmony with it. The owls call hauntingly in the trees, the breeze whispers through the leaves, and the occasional rustle of small animals scurrying about adds a lively soundtrack to our journey. I look up to my left, Goruk's expression shifting from a quiet one to a happy glance as we make eye contact. Everything all right, Valor? Goruk asks, his steps slowing. I nod quickly and pull him along as we continue. Never better. As we near the camp, I can see the smoke rising from the cooking fire and hear the sound of laughter and chatter. The familiar faces of my tribe greet us as we enter the clearing. Goruk squeezes my hand gently, as if to reassure me that everything will be okay. His touch is warm and grounding, reminding me that I am not alone in this strange new world. We step into camp, our presence going unnoticed by the others as they buzz about their daily tasks. It is as if we are in our own little bubble, untouched by the chaos and uncertainty of our surroundings. But I know that eventually we will have to face the reality of our situation. For now, though, I let myself bask in the peacefulness of this moment, grateful to have Goruk by my side. After a quick goodbye, Goruk leaves for Hyzen's tent to tell him about the elf attack last night. As much as I want to linger in his presence, I know some tasks need to be done, and we promise to interview Caspian together once he's done. I head towards the well, taking a moment to appreciate the beauty of the camp. The tents are neatly arranged in a circle, with a central fire pit where several of the orcs are gathered. It is comforting to see them laughing and chatting, even amid such dire circumstances as war. Once I carry the water back to my tent, I pour it into a wash basin. The cold water feels refreshing against my skin, washing away the grime and sweat from our night together. Despite everything that has happened, it is moments like this that make me feel alive. After cleaning up, I make my way back to Caspian's holding cell. As I approach, Goruk emerges from behind a tree with a smile on his face. Goruk and I enter Caspian's cell, the dark elf giving us a small smile as we come in. "Caspian, how are you doing?" I ask, taking a seat on one of the makeshift chairs. His arms are still tied, though his expression is calm and collected with a book sitting in front of him. "I'm doing spectacular, as you can see," Caspian replies, his voice calm and composed. "What do you need?" I give a small laugh before crossing my arms. "You're straight to the point." Caspian shrugs slightly. "I assume you're here for one reason or another. Might as well ask now." I take a deep breath before starting. "The elves came back last night." Caspian raises an eyebrow in curiosity. "Is that so?" Goruk takes over from there. "It is. Hyzen believes they're looking for the other stone, or they're looking for you." "That does seem likely." Goruk steps up, looking at me before focusing on Caspian. "How do we close the portal?" Caspian looks Goruk up and down, his gaze piercing before nodding slowly. "For someone to be able to go through the portal, they have to be able to withstand magic," Caspian explains. "It's a powerful force that few can withstand completely." My thoughts wander as I imagine the process of getting past the portal and into Protheca. It seems too daunting, too impossible, and I feel my heart begin to race just thinking about it. Until I met Caspian, I thought that Protheca was some sort of mythical world. The thought of travelling there seems impossible. "What do you mean to withstand?" Goruk asks. Caspian takes a deep breath before explaining further. "It means an untrained body would be destroyed in the transport to Protheca. Many have tried and failed. Few have returned alive." He pauses for a moment, letting his words sink in before continuing. "The process requires extensive training, both mental and physical, to even be able to enter the portal without being torn apart by its power." Goruk is quiet for what feels like an eternity, before finally speaking again. "I suppose this is your way of volunteering," he says quietly. Caspian nods slowly in agreement. "Yes, you will indeed need someone who is trained in this kind of magic if you want to make it through the portal alive." "I'm not letting you flit off into some sort of portal," Goruk says, expression unreadable. "Forgive me for my lack of trust, but your people have been trying to kill mine since they got here. I'm not risking the fate of this war on the fact that some mythical stone gave you a conscience." I agree with Goruk, but it puts us in a bind. If we can't trust Caspian, and if no one else can survive the trip, how are we supposed to destroy the Dawnstone on Protheca? I expect him to argue, but to my surprise, Caspian looks between us before nodding his head in agreement. "No," Caspian agrees quietly. "It shouldn't be me alone, and it can't be either of you. It can't be me alone, even if I wished it so. My magic is too depleted thanks to this cursed planet." He pauses, taking a deep breath before continuing. "However, I can tell you where the Dawnstones are located on Protheca, so that if anyone were to go, they would know where they need to go. If we found someone suitable, someone who could withstand the portal, I would go along as a guide." Goruk and I exchange glances before turning back towards Caspian. While we still don't fully trust him, We both know that he has already lost too much magic to be any danger to anyone. Probably. Would that change on Protheka? The Dawnstones are guarded by my parents, Caspian goes on. I'm the only one I know who can get through their defences. He looks us both in the eyes, his gaze filled with determination and a hint of desperation. I will do whatever I can to help you search for someone who can make it through there alive. I will not rest until we have found them. You might not trust me, but trust that I do care for my people in my own way. I don't want my world to lose its magic. Chapter 30. Valor. Nervous? A voice asks from off to the side of me. I return distractedly as women flit around me before my attention span catches up. Oh, about the mission? No, Caspian seems to be a reliable informant, and we've got plenty of capable warriors, despite the lack of magical advantage. It's taken several days of planning, meetings, making decisions and more meetings, but a strategy seems to have finally started to form. Based on the Dark Elf's information and reports from various scouting parties, we've started to devise a way to feasibly destroy the purported Dawnstone that is meant to link Earth with the conquering Protheka. Many orcs seem to think the plan is a long shot regardless, but anything to put the elves on the back foot counts as a victory. With Caspian's warnings about reinforcements for invading, we'll need every victory we can scrape against the ones who threaten to subdue us. However, the questioning female orc beside me crinkles her face in amusement as she regards me with an upturned smile. What I meant was, are you nervous about the mating ceremony? Oh. My cheeks flush with embarrassment at the response. Between conferences and more advised interrogations, my mind has been full of plans for the upcoming mission, rather than my mating ceremony. No, not really. We've been so busy with everything else. I guess I haven't really given it much thought. Which is true. Even when we're not attending some council or asking Caspian for further details, Goruk has found plenty of ways and opportunities to keep me pleasantly distracted from thinking about our upcoming mating ceremony. Besides that, most of the planning for the ceremony itself has been done by the heads of the camp, as well as the women who surround me now, preparing for what's about to come. There is a combination of good-natured eye rolls and easy shrugs. The women, mainly a few elder female orcs and some of the human mates of warriors, are present, volunteering to help me today when I would otherwise be on my own. I haven't interacted with them as frequently as I have the other warriors, yet I'm moved by all their help and good wishes all the same. Just don't listen to what the men tell you, there's nothing to worry about, a woman advises as she enters my tent with ceremonial flowers that have been gathered. Whatever they told you, they're full of dung. For one thing, the blood is very minimal, the first woman contributes. Animal sacrifices haven't been practiced for years for this part of the ritual. And considering the importance of the upcoming mission, the chief decided to forego the obligatory days of blood sport and death contests that traditionally lead up to the actual mating ceremony. Another woman responds succinctly. Thank God for that. The camp is always a mess afterwards. Some of the human women start to look at each other with concern, but I laugh off the others' teasing, recalling the briefing old Malik gave me concerning the mating ceremony. Celebrations are a strange thing to me, but I suppose it's because I have spent much of my life struggling to survive or be accepted into the camp. Now the time has come, where I find myself the centre of attention, and I can't help but wonder what my birth parents would have thought of all this. Would they be proud of their daughter and how far I've come? Would they be moved by the show of support by the race that adopted me, and would they have approved of Goruk? I may never truly know the answers, but I hope they would have been as excited as I am for this day. Exhaling deeply, I feel the dress come down over me as a few of the other women finish off twisting flowers and berries into my hair. A couple of neat belts and buckles cinch my outfit together, with the whole look completed with a pair of my favourite sandals. As the war drums signal the start of the ceremony, I move to leave the tent, opening the flap to find Hazen standing at the entrance. The second in command always seems to have a youthful, playful look about him despite his size and age, and I arch an eyebrow in curiosity at his appearance. He steps forward, and in an uncharacteristic move, extends his bent arm toward me in a very human gesture. "You know, I was the one who matched you and Goruk together," he states proudly, smug and smiling. "Some might even give me credit for this whole party today." "Oh, really?" I return, hooking my arm into his. "How were you so sure that I wouldn't kill him?" He chuckles at that, a rumbling sound that widens my grin. "Call it a gut instinct. I knew the two of you would be good for each other. And seeing as I'm taking credit for everything, the least I can do is bring you over to him." My breath catches as something squeezes tightly in my chest. Unbidden, the tears I've been holding at bay seem to spring to my eyes. For my people, it's the tradition that the father gives away the bride on her wedding day. Yes, that is how my mate explained it to me. There is a telltale darkening across his cheekbones, along with his simple reply, revealing more than either of us is strong enough to call attention to. Then he gives a gruff cough, breaking the sentimental moment as he continues. "Well, let's get on it with it, shall we?" "Oh yes, let's," I reply, quickly wiping away the tears threatening to escape. We head towards the centre of the camp together, the bursting joy I feel making me lighter than I have ever felt before. Although orcs are highly individualistic, more loyal to clans and their immediate families compared to a united authority or governing body, there are certain rituals and ceremonies that are communal, like the mating ceremony. Everyone is in attendance as the centre of the war camp has been turned into a decorated pavilion, full of nature's beauty and orcish music. I hardly see any of it though, locking eyes with Goruk as I approach. He is powerful and resplendent in his best armour, and all the trappings of the ceremony fade away as we come to stand together before the shaman. The healer commences a speech I barely hear, reminding us of our responsibilities toward each other as mates, as well as the standard blessings. We affirm our pledges as warriors to the war god, marking our service with small cuts to our joined palms, the necessary blood sacrifice. Then we combine the laurels we were respectively crowned with together, affirming our pledges to each other, as the shaman declares us as bonded mates for life. The roar that sounds throughout the camp seems to split the air, breaking the spell of the ceremony Goruk and I seem to have fallen under. Raucous whistles and stomping feet startle me for only a moment. Then Goruk is pulling me as close as possible, kissing the old life out of me, and breathing in our new life together. I know there is war on the horizon, and new struggles for us to overcome in the near future. But right now there is only celebration and happiness, as Goruk and I spend the day celebrating our newly affirmed bond, along with the orc camp that I have come to accept as family, as they have with me.
Chapter 31. Goruk. Some days it feels like a dream until I see her again. And then I see her, and I know it is real. I smile and realize how lucky of an orc I am to have Valor, my mate, by my side. And that's where she is right now as we stand side by side on the training ground. I breathe in her scent and promise not to let her allure distract me. We have heavy business at hand, and it won't do if my thoughts are in the bedroom. For now, anyway. Look at them, Valor whispers softly in my ear, her breath hot against my neck. They're truly giving it their all. I nod in agreement, casting my gaze across the training grounds. As they push through each challenge, I can see the fire in their eyes, the determination to prove themselves. It's a sight that fills me with a sense of pride, not just for them, but for the cause we all fight for. The smell of ozone fills my nostrils as the air crackles with magical energy. I watch with pride as our volunteers, many of whom have never faced such raw power before, struggle to withstand the onslaught. Some falter, their steps unsteady and eyes wide with fear. But they do not give up. They dig deep within themselves, searching for the strength to continue. Remarkable, I whisper, unable to hide the admiration in my voice. Vala squeezes my hand in agreement, and we share a knowing look. These volunteers are the future, the key to unlocking a new future for all of us. Look at them, Goruk, Vala says, her voice tinged with awe. Every one of them is determined to play their part, to give their all, even if it means their life. And who would have thought a dark elf would have his part to play in all of this? I nod toward Caspian, who carefully puts the volunteers through their paces. One of them will cross the portal and save us all. This long war will finally have an end. Well, that was one of the surprises I wasn't expecting, Vala says, raising her eyebrows. I guess you never can or should judge a book by its cover, even if it does scream psychopathic monster, I say. He certainly came through, and we have to admit without we would probably be just a little bit screwed, Vala says. My gaze follows hers to two girls who stand out among the crowd. Kira and Avalon, identical twins with fiery red hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. Though still young, they exude an air of confidence that belies their years. They move in perfect sync, their bodies bending and twisting with grace as they dodge each spell hurled their way. They're showing promise, don't you think? Vala nods. Caspian thinks so, at least, and he's not one to overdo praise. The twins remain strong and unwavering despite the magical barrage they face. Their focus never wavers, their faces set as they forge ahead. Watch this! Avalon shouts, leaping into the air to avoid a particularly nasty bolt of energy. She lands deftly on a nearby rock, grinning triumphantly as she catches her breath. Nice one, sis! Kira calls out, clapping Avalon on the back as she joins her on the makeshift perch. I can't help but think that these two are destined for greatness. I can't help but hope for it anyway. The alternative is too grim to think about. Remarkable, aren't they? Vala says, her voice soft but filled with pride. Indeed, I agree, watching as Kira ducks beneath a searing bolt of lightning. I turn towards Caspian. Push them further. Several volunteers have already given up. They stand to the side of the training ring, folded over on themselves, breathing heavily. Is that necessary? Vala sounds doubtful. It won't do us any good to break them. We need to know for sure that they can make it. It's better that we know now which one is best. Other volunteers linger, but it's clear which two I'm talking about. One of the twins will be selected to go through the portal. We need to figure out which one is the most likely to survive. Let's see how far they can go, shall we? Caspian calls out, his grin wicked. Caspian raises his arms, summoning the very elements to do his bidding. Torrents of fire, ice, and electricity bombard the twins from all directions. Avalon leaps into a roll, narrowly avoiding a massive column of flame as Kira deflects an icy blast with her shield, sending shards of ice shattering across the forest floor. Is that all you've got? Kira yells defiantly, her breath ragged but her spirit unbroken. Bring it on, Avalon adds, her voice strained but determined. Damn, these girls are unstoppable, I think to myself. Keep pushing, Kira! Avalon, you're doing incredible! Vala shouts, her voice full of encouragement and awe. Caspian's magic intensifies, the air crackling and hissing around us as he summons forth even more powerful spells. The ground trembles beneath our feet, and I can feel the heat from the inferno he unleashes. Kira and Avalon stumble but recover well. Long after the rest of the volunteers have fallen with exhaustion, they face barrage after barrage. Anything that Caspian can throw at them, they take. But I can't pick one that's better than the other. Hyzen, observing from the other side of the grounds, approaches us. He has that look in his eyes. I straighten myself up like any soldier does when approached by his senior in command. Well, he demands, grinning his youthful grin. Which one will it be? Vala nods towards the training ground. They're twins in ability as well, it seems. I can't pick one that's better than the other. Goruk? I shake my head. Hyzen's grin remains, but the look in his eye is as flinty as any metal. Caspian, unleash everything you have. Vala's eyes widen as Caspian unleashes a torrent of magic. The hair on my arm stands on end, and even Caspian begins to look faint. If this is what his magic is like when it's depleted, I'm secretly glad that I never faced him at full strength. "Defense," Caspian urges them, "like I've taught you." The magic hits them both full on at first. It's enough to kill most people, but the twins aren't most people. Their heels dig into the dirt for leverage, and both of them push back against the dark purple electricity with some sort of shield. This continues for some time until the magic from Caspian's fingertips begins to spark and sputter, slowly fading into nothing. Caspian sits heavily onto the ground. Hyzen turns to me, eyebrow raised. I shake my head. "Hell if I can pick one." "Let's ask them then," Valor suggests. "Girls?" The twins both saunter over. There's something uncomfortably familiar about the defiant set of their chins. I know that arrogance well. I also know the trouble that arrogance has caused me. "Both of you are qualified," Hyzen says. "Both of you are strong. But we require one volunteer, not two. Which of you will it be?" "Me," they say in unison. They glare at each other in unison too. "I don't want you to go," Kira says. "Well, I don't want you to go either. Glory hog. Sorry for trying to keep you alive." Avalon crosses her arms over her chest. "You can't take her! She can't even move in the mornings. I'm better suited." "And you're an arrogant know-it-all who doesn't listen to anyone but yourself," Kira shoots back. "You're going to get yourself killed. It's not right to take her. Take me instead." Hyzen interrupts them. "Our lives are ruled by right or wrong, first or last. The decisions we make and the outcomes we expect are based on nothing but our perception, and not the reality of the world that we inhabit." "I'm not sure I'm following, sir," I say, struggling to understand his words. "It means it's up to old Malik," Hyzen says. "He will make the final decision." I look at Caspian, who nods in agreement. Then I look at Vala, who does the same. And I know old Malik is the only one with the wisdom to make this decision, so I nod at Hyzen, who walks back to the tent he's been spending more and more time inside lately. We are left to wonder just what old Malik will say.